Chapter 393. 3 days later, Su-won gradually regained consciousness. She realized that she was curled up in a cocoon and everything around her was light green. There was a small figure curled up next to her. Oh, isn't this Master Mo's sister? Su-won lifted her hand and brushed away the hair on the girl's face, revealing her cute and fair face. Wait. Su-won once again raised her hand and waved her fair and slender palm in front of her eyes a few times. Su-won's expression immediately became excited. She finally transformed into a human. After the excitement, Su-won discovered another problem. Nanny, she wasn't wearing anything right now. Ah. Su-won turned to look at the tiny emerald green scales that had fallen off her body. She silently chanted a few spells and the scales immediately connected together, transforming into an emerald green dress that covered Su-won's body. She was actually at the peak of the foundation realm. Plus, there was still some emerald green medicinal power in her dantian that hadn't taken effect yet. She probably had to wait until she entered the golden core realm before it could take effect. This 10,000-year-old chalcedony fruit was really good. At this moment, the entire cocoon shook and cracked. From a certain direction outside the cocoon, a terrifying murderous aura could be felt. Su-won subconsciously pulled the unconscious little loli up. The moment the cocoon shattered, Master Mo's figure appeared in front of Su-won. The two just stared at each other quietly. Purple poisonous mist rolled around in Master Mo's palm while Su-won smiled coquettishly. She held a sharp scale and strangled the little loli's neck. Master, what are you doing? Let go of her. Master Mo looked at Su-won coldly, the poisonous mist in his palm becoming more concentrated. Was she planning on revealing her true self? Master, you can poison a large group of cultivators just by moving your fingers. I'm really scared of you. I don't dare to let go. Su-won revealed a scared expression. How about this? Master, have Jio send me and Plum Blossom out of the medicinal valley. When we cross the West Sea and arrive at the Kunlun Fairyland, I will ask Jio to send your sister back. Don't worry, we demons are very particular about honesty. Integrity. Master Mo smiled in disdain. You've already lost your credibility here. Do you think I'll still believe you? You will. Why don't you try? This is a life we're talking about. You don't want your sister, whom you've spent so much effort to save, to die like this, do you? While speaking, Su-won had already slowly released her demonic power, the scales in her hands flashing with a dark green radiance. A poison cultivator against a venomous snake. What an interesting battle. It was a competition of who was more venomous. The effect of the 10,000 years old chalcedony fruit exceeded Su-won's expectations, causing such a big trouble. But Su-won didn't regret it now. Cultivators were existences that fought against the heavens and seized the fortune of heaven and earth. Compared to human cultivators, it was much harder for demonic cultivators to cultivate. If she hadn't absorbed so much of the chalcedony fruit's medicinal effects, Su-won didn't know when she would have entered the golden core realm. But now, she was at the peak of the foundation realm. She was just one step away from the golden core realm. You really think you can leave the medicinal valley? Master Mo narrowed his eyes at the woman in front of him. She wore a long green dress, but she wore a confident smile on her cold face. As long as you're willing to let us go, I'll be able to leave the medicinal valley safely. Such firm words, such cold eyes, and such a tone. Master Mo was dazed and his gaze dimmed. Okay, I'll agree to your conditions. But, little green snake, I'll definitely take your life the next time we meet. Same here. Su-won smiled enchanting. She knew that she had offended Master Mo badly this time. No matter if he was a mission enforcer or not, she could only avoid him when her cultivation wasn't as high as his. But Songyue mainland was so big. Couldn't she avoid one person? Little Plum Blossom was still in a daze even after Joe used her body to bring Su Wan, Little Plum Blossom, and the others out of the medicinal valley. Little snake, you really turned into a human. You're so pretty. Are you going to bring me to a place where human cultivators gather? Will we be discovered? No, don't worry. Su Wan comforted Little Plum Blossom, who was inexplicably emotional. Joe could only stare at the sky speechlessly. Dear friends, aren't you guys focusing on the wrong thing? Do you really think you can escape from Master Mo's pursuit? This baby has been by his side for many years, and has long known the other side of him, that he will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Moreover, anyone who has been targeted by him, no matter where they flee to, will be easily locked onto by him, and then killed. Sigh. As expected, ignorant people are the happiest. The West Sea was a vast place. To cross the West Sea to the Kunlun immortal realm, unless it was a cultivator above the nascent soul realm who could travel 100,000 miles a day, the easiest way for other cultivators to cross the sea safely was naturally to take a boat. When they got near the ferry, Little Plum Blossom, who still couldn't turn into a human, could only turn into a plum blossom hairpin. Su Wan stuck the hairpin in her hair while Joe transformed into a girl dressed in red. Looking at the red-clothed young lady with bright eyes and white teeth, it was really hard for Su Wan to associate her with the man-eating flower that opened its bloody mouth and chewed up corpses bit by bit. Okay, let's go. Joe glanced at Su Wan and Su Wan nodded. She carried the unconscious Loli and followed behind Joe. There was only one boat a day from the shore of the West Sea to Kunlun. The one responsible for the safety of the boat was the second-rank sect Xiang sect in Kunlun. Second-rank sects were already very strong sects in Songyue mainland, second only to the three first-rank sections. Xiang sect had always punished evil and promoted good. They were the model of a righteous sect. Therefore, everyone was at ease taking their boat. Su Wan and Joe's luck was pretty good today. When they arrived at the ferry, the boat was just about to leave. After Joe showed the Medicinal Valley's token, the three naturally boarded the boat without any obstructions. Seeing the unconscious girl in Su Wan's arms, the cultivator on the boat couldn't help but take a few more glances. Is this girl from your Medicinal Valley too? Su Wan smiled faintly at the cultivator's words. This is my younger sister. She accidentally went berserk while practicing martial arts. Fortunately, this junior sister from the Medicinal Valley saved her, allowing her to escape from death. Oh. The cultivator smiled and glanced at Joe. The Medicinal Valley's cultivators have always been the role models of our generation. Young friend, you're so young yet you have such a good cultivation. Which expert from the Medicinal Valley is your master? Hearing the cultivator's words, Joe raised her head arrogantly. My master is known as Poison Saint Master Mo. Master Mo. Hearing those three words, the cultivator subconsciously took 3 steps back and his face turned pale. Jeeve Master Mo. The #1 poison cultivator in the world. Cough. So you're Master Mo's people. Sorry for not recognizing you. There are 2 superior guest rooms on the boat. Daoist friends, please follow me. Master Mo was this famous in Kunlun Paradise. Su Wan was a bit surprised by this. After all, she had been staying in Wanyao Mountain. She had only heard about Kunlun Paradise from other people. Chapter 394. The Xiang sect's ships were all high-class magic treasures from the Daki sect. Not only was the entire ship extremely strong in defense, but it also had a terrifying attack power. Therefore, this ship had never had any accidents in the past few hundred years when it sailed on the West Sea. Even if there were some ignorant sea demons that came to cause trouble, they would be quickly killed by the Xiang sect's attendant disciples on the ship. Suwon and Jio were arranged to stay in two adjacent rooms. Right now, Suwon had already placed the little loli she kidnapped on the bed. The girl's face was flushed and her eyelashes trembled. She actually showed signs of waking up. Ah! Should he cast a hypnosis spell on her and let her continue sleeping? While Suwon was hesitating, the little loli on the bed suddenly opened her eyes. A pair of clear and pure eyes stared unblinkingly at Suwon's face. Suwon froze. She didn't know why, but seeing such a cute face and pure eyes, she felt really familiar and comfortable. This kind of eyes and this kind of little loli seemed to have appeared in her life before. Was it some mission world? Suwon couldn't remember. Mother. The little loli blinked and called out in a childish tone. Suwon immediately shook her head awkwardly. No, no, no. I'm not your mother. I'm sister-in-law. The girl tilted her head and looked innocently at Suwon. I can feel it. You have brother's aura on you. You're sister-in-law, right? Ah. Suwon's gaze shifted and she smiled at the little loli. Yes, I'm your sister-in-law. Your brother told me to take you to Kunlun Paradise to learn martial arts. But you can't let outsiders know of your identity. Do you understand? Oh. The little girl nodded obediently. Chien-er knows. Brother taught me this before. We can't tell others our identities. As a descendant of that race, she couldn't let anyone discover her special bloodline. Otherwise, what awaited her and her brother wasn't as simple as a disaster. So this beautiful sister was really her sister-in-law. Big brother actually told her his biggest secret? Chien completely believed Suwon. Seeing how cooperative Master Mo's sister was, Suwon couldn't help but smile. Okay, Chien-er, right? Rest a bit more. We're on the ship heading to Kunlun Paradise. Remember, other than sister-in-law, don't believe anything anyone says to you. Do you understand? N. Chien-er nodded vigorously. Sister-in-law, don't worry, Chien-er will remember it. Such a good boy. Seeing that Chien had fallen asleep obediently, Suwon let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, the little loli was easy to coax. The boat would take a few days to reach Kunlun Immortal Domain. She couldn't make any mistakes on the way. Suwon didn't want to be eliminated so quickly. She still had important things to do. Thinking of this, Suwon felt that her mind was a bit muddled. She silently recited a few clear heart incantations and finally gradually calmed down. The first night on the West Sea was calm and tranquil. There were no dreams. The second day, when Suwon woke up, Chien-er was already awake. She blinked her innocent eyes and looked at Suwon. Sister-in-law, did I sleep for a long time? Is my brother okay? Chien-er's memory stopped at the time when she was 7 years old. When she was unconscious, her consciousness was sometimes awake and sometimes silent. Therefore, she really didn't know how long she slept for. She just faintly felt that this world was many years in the future. Hearing Chien-er's question, Suwon gently rubbed her black hair. Chien-er, be good. You didn't sleep for long. My brother is doing well. You'll be able to see him soon. Chien-er immediately nodded her head. Little Plum Blossom, who had been pretending to be a plum blossom hairpin that didn't know how to do anything, was secretly studying Suwon and Chien-er. The little snake seemed to be really nice to Master Mo's sister. Right. Sister Jio said that women didn't mean what they said. Then did the little snake like Master Mo? But she was a snake. Weren't snakes cold-blooded? Little Plum Blossom thought that this world was too complicated. For a moment, she didn't even want to cultivate to become a human anymore. Jill was the happiest person seeing that Qian woke up. She kept trying to get closer to Qian but it was all in vain. Qian seemed to only believe Su Wan. She didn't believe that she was her brother's servant. "You're not my brother's servant. You don't have my brother's scent." Little Qian firmly believed this. Jill was speechless. What kind of logic was this? She had been by Master's side for so many years. How could she not have Master's scent? Even if she really didn't have Master's scent, how could the little snake be tainted with Master's scent? Humph. Jill felt that she seemed to have discovered a huge secret. What did the little snake and Master do behind her and Little Plum Blossom's backs? In reality, Su Wan was also puzzled. Why did Master Mo's sister insist that she had Master Mo's scent on her? How did she judge? Jill didn't know and neither did Su Wan. Only Qian knew that there used to be a race in this world. They never looked at a person's appearance. They looked at that person's soul. Although Qian had been unconscious all these years, her consciousness was still there. She could feel her brother's soul. Although his soul had fluctuated violently 10 years ago, Qian knew that her brother was her brother. But this green-clothed girl had her brother's scent engraved in her soul. Qian remembered her father saying that only when two people saw each other as the love of their lives would their scents fuse with each other and be engraved in the depths of each other's souls. There was no mistake about this. Therefore, little Qian who Jill thought was a complete mess, was actually the one who saw through everything the most. Facing little Qian's resistance, Jill gave up in the end. Anyways, the little snake and Little Plum Blossom were going to go far away once they reached Kunlun Paradise. She just had to bring this little ancestor back to report. As for the rest, she couldn't be bothered with them. On the third day of the voyage, they were attacked by a group of ferocious sea demons. While fighting against the sea demons, the cultivators on the ship rescued 2 wounded cultivators from the sea. Miss Joe. Knowing that Jill came from the medicinal valley, the attendant immediately found her and respectfully invited her to the lower cabin to check on the 2 injured people. Jill could only agree to this. But as a domineering man-eating flower, she only knew how to eat people. How would she know how to save people? However, now that she was on this ship, it was hard for her to back down. If she were to deny her identity now, she and the little snake would definitely be suspected by everyone. They might even be thrown into the West Sea to be fed to the sea demons. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Little snake, you have to help me. You're so close to the master. You must know how to save people, right? Jill brought Su Wan to the lower level of the ship, secretly transmitting her voice as they walked. Su Wan, what do you mean I'm so close to the master? He wants to kill me. Are you blind? Chapter 395. Jill and Su Wan were brought to the room by Xiang's sex attendant. Jill smelled fresh blood the moment she entered. It was really strong and fragrant. She immediately became excited. All of you, get out. Get out. After shooing everyone out of the room, Jill came to the bed before Su Wan. There was a person lying on each of the 2 beds. Both were young men. Although they were covered in wounds, one could tell that they were dignified young masters. One of them smelled fresh blood and Jill couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Oh my God. I've sucked so much blood and eaten so many people, but I've never encountered such delicious food. This is the most delicious food in the world. Little snake, that person's blood is really strange. The plum blossom on top of Su Wan's head couldn't help but speak. She had learned many spells with Jill during this period of time and also developed a habit of sucking blood. Therefore, the little plum blossom smelled the unusual fragrance the moment she entered the room. Joe, don't do anything rash. Su-won sniffed and her expression immediately changed. She ran to the bed and stopped Joe, who was about to suck blood. Don't drink it. There's something wrong with this person's blood. There's something wrong. Joe froze. Su-won carefully examined the young man on the bed. He looked like he was in his early 20s. Looking at his attire, he should be a disciple of a small sect. Su-won lifted the man's sleeves to check his pulse. His pulse was stable and so was his breathing. Why was he still unconscious? The moment Su-won looked down, she saw something similar to a tattoo on the man's wrist. Tattoo? Su-won's pupils shrank. She lifted her wrist and there was a golden tattoo on her wrist. It looked like a golden bracelet. What was this tattoo? Why did it appear on her arm? Su-won was somewhat confused. She closed her eyes and carefully recalled, but she could only vaguely remember that this golden tattoo should be a bracelet. This was given to her by a friend she met in a certain mission. Su-won couldn't remember the other details clearly. A bracelet could become a tattoo. Then could the small cauldron tattoo on the man's wrist be a magic weapon? Su-won's gaze turned complicated. Could this man be the main character? Or the male lead? While Su-won was deep in thought, Jo kept licking her lips. I'm so hungry. I want to drink blood. I can't take it anymore. While Su-won was in a daze, Jo quickly leaned over, her face almost sticking to the man's face. Just one sip will do. Just one sip will do. She licked her lips and was about to move her lips down to find the artery on the man's neck when the man on the bed suddenly woke up. The man didn't see the situation clearly after he woke up. He instinctively wanted to get up, but his face collided with Joe's. Dove, sob, my first kiss is gone. Su-won. Ahem. Baffled, Hanyu looked at the girl in red lying on the bed with a wronged expression and the cold woman in green. He scratched his head and said awkwardly, "Did you guys save me? What is this place? Where is senior brother Ewan? Is he all right?" Shut up. Why do you have so many questions? You stole my first kiss. I'm going to kill you. No, I'm going to eat you. Jill bared her fangs and brandished her claws, pouncing on Hanyu. Okay, don't mess around. Su-won waved her hand and pulled Jill behind her. She warned her in a low voice, "Do you not want to return to the medicinal valley?" Jill, okay. I'll endure it for now. In the future, I'll find a chance to take revenge on this damn brat. At this time, Hanyu's gaze gradually cleared up. He also recalled that when he lifted his head, he seemed to have touched the girl's lips. They were really soft. Thinking of this, his expression turned awkward. Apart from holding hands with Sister Ruoshue, he had never had such intimate contact with any other woman in his life. What should he do? While Hanyu was in a dilemma, Su-won said indifferently, "You're on Xiang Sec's ship just like us. Xiang Sec's people saved you. Is senior brother Ewan you're talking about him?" Saying this, Su-won pointed at the man on the other bed. The man was still unconscious. Hanyu immediately looked to the side hearing Su-won's words. As expected, he saw the unconscious Yuan Shao. He secretly sighed in relief. Thank God, thank God. As long as senior brother Yuan was still alive, that's good. Daoist friends, are you also Xiang Sec's disciples? Actually, with Hanyu's current cultivation, he had already heard Su-won mention the words, medicinal valley, but he didn't dare to ask directly. He could only take a roundabout way and ask about their origins. We're just passengers. We're not from Xiang sect. Su-won smiled and replied, "May I ask which sect you two are from?" How did you end up on the West Sea? Seeing that Su Wan didn't mention her origins, Han Yu could only smile. We're from the 4th rank sect, Lingbao sect. This time, senior brother Yuan and I took the sect's spiritual ship to the West Sea to search for materials to craft magic weapons. In the end, our ship was attacked by a group of sea monsters. Senior brother and I were separated from the others. Lingbao sect. The 4th rank sect that specialized in refining weapons? There weren't many sects that refined weapons in Songyue mainland. Other than the famous Daki sect, Lingbao sect was considered a rather famous refining sect. However, it was said that the old ancestor of Lingbao's sect had an eccentric temperament and there were many rules in the sect. A lot of potential refining masters were poached by Daki's sect or other sections. Now, Lingbao's sect could only fall to the awkward position of a 4th rank sect. Refining weapons, small cauldron. Su Wan narrowed her eyes. It seemed like she really encountered an incredible person this time. At this time, Zhou, who had been doing nothing, walked over to another person's bed. She looked at the unconscious man on the bed and poked his face out of boredom. In the next second, the man who was supposed to be unconscious suddenly grabbed Zhou's wrist and a murderous spiritual aura headed for her face. Danger! At the critical moment, Su Wan was about to make a move but Han Yu had already raised his hand and tossed out an umbrella-shaped spiritual treasure. The treasure automatically opened, helping Zhou block the spiritual qi. Senior brother Yuan, they're not evil people. Han Yu anxiously shouted at Yuan Shao. Not evil people. Yuan Shao, who had just regained his consciousness, slowly opened his eyes. In fact, Yuan Shao didn't know what was going on in the room. He just felt that someone was beside him. The habit he had developed over the years made him instinctively make a move. At this moment, he opened his eyes and saw the 2 beautiful women in front of him. Yuan Zhao's gaze flickered. Chapter 396. Senior brother Yuan. Seeing that Yuan Shao had woken up, Han Yu immediately jumped off the bed and walked to his bedside with a concerned expression. How do you feel? Yuan Shao gently moved his limbs. Good, good. Junior brother Han, are you okay? Su Wan's teeth ached seeing this brotherly respect. When they were rescued, they were said to be on the verge of death. How could they be alive and kicking in such a short amount of time? This didn't make sense. Did the people from Xiang's sect see wrongly? Or was there something fishy going on with these 2? Su Wan stood by the side and didn't dare to say anything. After all, these 2 were really strange. They might even be mission enforcers. Since you 2 have woken up, we won't disturb you anymore. Su Wan was silent for a moment and was about to leave when Han Yu turned to look at her and Zhou. It's fate that we met. I'm Lingbao's sect's Han Yu. This is my senior brother, Yuan Shao. How should I address you? I'm Shao Qing. She's Zhou. Su Wan replied faintly while Zhou snorted coldly at the side. TSK, Shao Qing, ignore him. Let's go. Saying this, Zhou dragged Su Wan outside while Han Yu stared blankly at the 2. Ahem. Yuan Shao chuckled as he clutched his chest. Junior Marshal Brother Han, did you offend Lady Zhou? She seems to be hostile towards you. Han Yu scratched his head awkwardly again. When I just woke up, I accidentally kissed her. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. It's normal for her to be angry. Yuan Shao was speechless. As expected, the male lead's life couldn't be replicated by ordinary people. He could obtain treasures when he was in danger. He could meet beauties when he was injured. If there was a bag of spicy gluten next to him, Yuan Shao would definitely eat a few bites to calm down. Senior brother Yuan, that sunken ship, hearing Han Yu mention the shipwreck, Yuan Shao immediately raised his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. Then, he looked at Han Yu with a serious face and said, "Junior brother Han, don't mention the shipwreck again. When we return to the sect, you and I must say that everyone was attacked by a group of sea demons and unfortunately died. As for the underwater cave, this is your own good fortune. Don't mention it again, in case others find out and covet it." Hearing Yuan Zhao's words, Han Yu nodded solemnly. Then, he couldn't help but despise himself in his heart. Senior brother Yuan was so good to him, yet he was still suspicious of him. He really shouldn't have. Seeing that Han Yu was looking at him with more sincerity, Yuan Shao couldn't help but feel relieved. Damn it, meeting this extremely suspicious male lead who has been at the bottom of society since he was young, he had to give it his all. With his cultivation, he almost died at the bottom of the West Sea this time. Luckily, our male lead has great luck and was able to meet Xiang's sex ship. He even met two outstanding beauties. TSK, this is really a case of comparing people to people and comparing goods to goods, you have to throw them away. While Yuan Shao was thinking about how to get the male lead to accept him as his trusted aide, Su Wan and Jiu had returned to the upper cabin. Knowing that the two Daoist friends were fine, the Xiang sex attendant looked at Jiu even more respectfully. The Medicinal Valley's people lived up to their reputation. Not only could they not see through their cultivation, but they also had such great medical skills at such a young age. It was naturally worth befriending people like them. By the time they returned to the cabin, Qian had already fallen asleep. She had just woken up and her soul power was still too weak. Therefore, she slept more than she was awake. This saved Su Wan a lot of trouble. "Jiu, can you tell the cultivation of those two people?" Su Wan turned to ask Jiu. Jiu's expression turned serious for the first time. "I couldn't. Their cultivation should be much higher than ours." "That's right. Han Yu and Yuan Xiao's cultivation was higher than Su Wan and Jiu's. Han Yu was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm while Yuan Xiao's cultivation was on par with Han Yu's. The two were outstanding inner sect disciples of Lingbao's sect. It wasn't strange for them to have this kind of cultivation. Compared to human cultivators, demon cultivators' cultivation speed was much slower. But at the same time, demon cultivators could defeat opponents of higher realms. In other words, if Su Wan, who was at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm, encountered a human cultivator at the beginning stage of the Golden Core realm, she might not be able to completely crush them, but it was still easy for her to win. But against a middle-stage Golden Core realm, she didn't have much of a chance of winning. After all, her cultivation foundation wasn't stable yet. Plus, she didn't have an inheritance. Strictly speaking, she could only be considered an itinerant cultivator. Compared to the disciples of the proper sects, there was a huge difference in cultivation. It seemed like she really should find a sect in Kunlun Paradise and join it. Thinking of this, Su Wan couldn't help but lift her wrist to look at the golden tattoo on her wrist. Not only did this tattoo contain a terrifying aura, but it could also help her conceal her demon aura, making people unable to recognize her true identity. This was also why Su Wan dared to go to Kunlun Paradise fearlessly. But, Little Plum Blossom was different from her. Her cultivation was lower than hers and she didn't have a magic treasure that could conceal her aura like Jiu and her. Why couldn't the human cultivators discover her? Su Wan had thought about it from the start. If someone discovered Little Plum Blossom's existence, she would lie and say that she was her demon pet. But what Su Wan didn't expect was that none of the cultivators on the boat noticed Little Plum Blossom's existence. Just what special background did Little Plum Blossom have? There was a trace of doubt in Su Wan's heart, but she quickly suppressed it at the bottom of her heart. During the past few days on the boat, Su Wan had been keeping a low profile in her room and rarely went out. Xian, her and Little Plum Blossom were with her, but Jiu couldn't stay idle in the other room. Plus, she felt itchy after not drinking blood for a few days. But thinking of what Master Mo told her before he left, Jill was scared. In the end, she decided to sneak into the kitchen and steal some blood. But when she sneaked into the kitchen, she was still bumped into by someone. The person who bumped into her was none other than the male lead, Hanyu. Hanyu accidentally saw a peerless blacksmithing material in the kitchen that was mistaken as a kitchen knife. He planned to secretly study it at night. If he didn't sense wrongly, he would find an excuse to buy that knife the next day. Who knew that he would run into Joe, who went to the kitchen to steal some blood? The two of them had a big fight when they met. Then, Hanyu realized that the other party was actually the red-clothed girl from that day. He immediately turned around and ran away. The kitchen knife that he had been studying for half a day was brought back by Joe in a muddle-headed manner. Say, is he crazy for going to the kitchen to stare at a kitchen knife in the middle of the night? Joe angrily went to Su Wan's room and tossed the kitchen knife on the table. Su Wan's gaze brightened hearing Joe's words. Why was a male lead called a male lead? It was because they could always get great benefits. They could always treat the supporting characters and passers-by as idiots. Chapter 397. This is a golden flame crystal. While Su Wan and Joe were in a daze, Little Plum Blossom's childish voice rang above Su Wan's head. This is a peerless refining material. Ever since the flame immortal self-destructed 5,000 years ago, it's rare to see such a peerless refining material in Sangyue mainland. Peerless refining material. Su Wan was shocked. If she didn't hear wrong, Little Plum Blossom mentioned the flame immortal. Self-destructing and whatnot. This place, could it be that world? That world, Su Wan recalled the legend she read in the information library. Legend had it that a female mission enforcer fell in love with a man in the mission world. She disregarded the heavenly law's punishment and wanted to give birth to a child for the person she loved. Later on, the female mission enforcer gave birth to a child for the man, but the child didn't escape the heavenly law's punishment. The man lost his wife and child and chose to self-destruct. That man was called the Flame Immortal. But now, she actually came to 5,000 years after the Flame Immortal self-destructed. Why did she choose this world? What was so mysterious about this? Su Wan lifted her head and asked softly, Little Plum Blossom, how do you know so much? Do you know anything else about the Flame Immortal? Little Plum Blossom had already transformed into her true form. She floated onto the kitchen knife lightly. The golden flame crystal gave her a very familiar feeling. Just now, some scenes appeared in her mind. I don't know why I know, but I seem to recall some scenes when I see something. This knife contains a complete golden flame crystal. This golden flame crystal was originally going to be used by the Flame Immortal to refine a magic weapon for Jinghong Fairy. Amen. Little Plum Blossom suddenly trembled. I think I saw a woman standing under the red plum tree. She was wearing red and there was a golden bracelet on her wrist. What? Su Wan froze hearing Little Plum Blossom's words. She subconsciously touched her wrist. The golden tattoo was still there. Unfortunately, it's just a back view. I can't see her face. Little Plum Blossom's mood suddenly dropped. The red plum tree in the image gave her a very familiar and intimate feeling. Was that her mother? Little Plum Blossom wasn't sure, but she knew that the red plum tree and the woman under it had to be related to her. A red plum blossom, a red dress, and a golden bracelet. Su Wan sunk into deep thought. Jill lifted her brows carelessly. What is this? Little Plum Blossom, aren't you a red plum blossom? I'm still wearing red clothes. If the little snake has a golden bracelet, we'll be complete. Damn, don't tell me I'm the reincarnation of the flame immortal. Wait. Su Wan's gaze suddenly brightened. Reincarnation. Inheritance. Forging, small cauldron. Little Plum Blossom, is the flame immortal also a blacksmith master? Yes. Little Plum Blossom nodded. In the constantly changing scenes, although the flame immortal could only be seen from the back, he was indeed a master refiner. Plus, he had a really powerful cauldron. As expected. Su Wan couldn't help but smile. Han Yu was the male lead and the small cauldron tattoo on his wrist was the Flame Immortal's #1 magic weapon from 5,000 years ago. Based on the current plot, Little Plum Blossom's background was mysterious. She seemed to have a lot to do with the Flame Immortal from 5,000 years ago, but Han Yu didn't discover her. This meant that Han Yu couldn't be the Flame Immortal's reincarnation. Then Han Yu was most likely the Flame Immortal's inheritor. After he obtained the mysterious cauldron, it would guide him to everything related to the Flame Immortal. Then he would activate the inheritance that the Flame Immortal left behind 5,000 years ago. From then on, he would walk on the path of a powerful male lead. Ding! At this time, a mechanical voice rang in Su Wan's mind. Congratulations, Mission Enforcer Su Wan. You've guessed the main plot of this mission world. You have a chance to ask a question. I will give you an answer based on the situation. Remember, you only have one chance. Gentle reminder, in order to be fair, you're forbidden from asking other mission enforcers' identities and locations. Thank you for your cooperation. So the test could be played like this. Su Wan froze. Then she couldn't help but ask in her mind, which sect is the safest for me to find a master in Kunlun Paradise? Joyous Sect. After leaving behind a 3-word answer, the voice went silent. Joyous Sect. Su Wan immediately furrowed her brows. She asked this question skillfully because there were still over 30 mission enforcers. According to the headquarters habits, each sect would have at least one or even more mission enforcers. Then where would Yi Axian and Ding Jie be? The place they were at was definitely the safest place for Su Wan. That was why Su Wan asked this question. But the headquarters answer made Su Wan speechless. Joyous Sect, the most famous dual cultivation sect on the mainland. Okay, this was practically tailor-made for Ding Jie. All the beautiful men in the world were cauldrons. But if it wasn't Ding Jie but Yi Axian who was in the Joyous Sect, Su Wan sighed inside. Joyous Sect really wasn't her cup of tea. It seemed like she had to rely on herself. She couldn't rely on the headquarters warning anymore. The golden flame crystal was a good item, but it was a crime to have it. With Su Wan and Zhou's cultivation, the two of them couldn't protect such a valuable item. She might as well return it to the male lead and do him a favor. The kitchen in the cabin was missing a kitchen knife, but the cooks didn't mind it too much. Because they were spiritual cooks, they all had their own kitchen knives. No one cared about the broken kitchen knife. Han Yu had accidentally lost the kitchen knife. Right now, he was vexed. Who knew that Su Wan returned the knife to him on her own at night? This is a good item. Daoist Han, be careful with it in the future. Su Wan's tone was mysterious when she returned the knife. She didn't want Han Yu to think that she was an idiot. She wanted to befriend and rope the male lead in. Of course, the most important thing was to make the male lead feel like he owed her a favor. Han Yu looked at Su Wan and revealed his signature awkward smile. Miss Xiaoqing, what is this? Daoist Han, you know and I know too. Didn't you say that it was fate that brought us together? If we meet again, I hope that Daoist Han won't be stingy and can use this to forge a suitable weapon for me. Of course, you just need to add a little. I'm not greedy. Su Wan smiled at Han Yu and then turned around to leave. She knew everything. Han Yu watched Su Wan's back and smiled faintly. It was rare that she was smart and knowledgeable. It's just a weapon. I, Han Yu, will remember the favor of returning the knife today. 3 days later, Xiang's sex ship finally docked at the border of Kunlun Paradise. While little Qian was asleep, Su Wan left with little Plum Blossom. This was just the border of Kunlun Paradise. There was still a long way to go to the center. Su Wan spent some spirit coins to buy a map of Kunlun Paradise. The locations of all the sects were marked on it. Even the date and month when the sects would start recruiting disciples was clearly written. Calculating the days, Su Wan realized that she was just in time for Xiang's sect and Fairy sect to recruit disciples. Fairy sect was one of the 3 first-rank sects in Songyue mainland, and Xiang's sect was a second-rank sect that couldn't be underestimated. After thinking about it, Su Wan felt that Xiang's sect was better. Fairy sect's foundation was too deep and there were a lot of old monsters in the sect. If they found out that she was a little plum blossom, it would be troublesome. Chapter 398. Xiang's sect was located to the north of Kunlun mystical region. It was a large cultivation sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. The sect master was called Xiang Sage. Jinren Ziyang, who was more than 1,000 years old, had an unfathomable cultivation base. The outside world was rumored that he had long surpassed the Mahayana stage and had reached the peak of the tribulation passing stage. However, because there weren't any good seedlings in the younger generation of Jinren Ziyang's sect who could carry the flag, he had been forcefully suppressing his level. His goal was to stay in Songyue mainland for a while longer and carefully cultivate an outstanding successor for his sect. When Su Wan and Little Plum Blossom arrived at Flaming Mountain, it was the last day of Xiang's sect's recruitment of outer sect disciples. There were a lot of rules when the sects in Kunlun mystical region opened their doors and recruited disciples. The small sects that opened their doors once every 3 to 5 years were lacking people. Large sects usually recruited disciples once every 5 to 10 years. Of course, these so-called disciples referred to those under 16 years old. They had good aptitudes and could be nurtured as elite disciples. All the large sects had a lot of work to do and the people in the sect couldn't handle it all. Every year, they would open their doors and select some wandering cultivators to join the sect to fill up the logistics. Of course, these wandering cultivators could only become outer sect disciples or outer sect deacons. Only those who had gone through many years of tests or made great contributions to the sect could have the chance to enter the inner sect or even higher. Su Wan could only take this path if she wanted to enter Xiang's sect. After all, she looked 17 or 18 years old. She couldn't wait another 6 or 7 years for the large sects to recruit disciples again. Inject your spiritual power into this stone. When it was Su Wan's turn, the examiner in front handed a piece of spirit storage stone to Su Wan. This stone itself didn't have any spiritual power. It was like a small mustard seed space. It could store a person's spiritual power for a long time, and according to the person's cultivation, the spirit storage stone would emit different lights. Su Wan held the spiritual stone in her hand. Not long after, the spiritual stone slowly turned from white to yellow and then slightly orange. Middle stage of Foundation Realm. The examiner seemed to be very satisfied with Su Wan's cultivation. That's right. The outer sect disciples they recruited didn't need to be very talented, but their cultivation couldn't be too low either. They liked middle stage, late stage, and peak stage of foundation establishment. Here, this is your number plate. Enter the relay station in the city and check in according to your number. Tomorrow, you will continue with the second round of examination. The examiner gave the number plate to Su Wan and then called out softly, "Next." Su Wan glanced at her number plate. It was actually 99. It really wasn't a bad number. After entering through the mountain gate, a wide street appeared in front of Suwon. This was Xiang City, which was under the jurisdiction of Xiang sect. It was also the only way to enter and exit Xiang sect. Most of the people living in Xiang City were cultivators and Xiang sect's outer sect deacons. Of course, there were also a small number of mortals living here. They were usually the managers of the mortal world's businesses under the jurisdiction of Xiang sect. Because their ancestors conscientiously worked for the sect for generations, they had the opportunity to live under Flaming Mountain with abundant spiritual power. Suwon followed the disciples' guidance and arrived at the relay station where all the candidate disciples lived. She took out her number plate and the servant respectfully invited her to the second floor. Daoist friend, this is your room. Our Xiang city has strict rules. Please don't casually walk around after nightfall. Tomorrow, the examiner will bring everyone to the second round of examination. After exhorting Suwon in a formal manner, the manservant quickly left. Suwon played with the number card in her hand and pushed open the door to enter the room. At this time, the door to the room 98 next door suddenly opened and a young man wearing a black robe appeared in front of Suwon. Hello, are you also here to take the exam to become an outer sect disciple? The man's voice was really deep and charming. Suwon looked at his charming face and nodded softly. Yes. I'm Yiching. You? Yiching smiled faintly at Suwon while saying this. A faint smile slowly bloomed on his devilish face, making him seem more gentle and less cold. I'm Xiaoqing. Suwon was still using the name that Master Mo gave her. Fine. She wouldn't admit that she was used to it. She was just too lazy to change her name. Xiaoqing. Yiching lifted his brows hearing Suwon's name. He wanted to say something but a purple figure quickly ran over. Master, I've ordered all the dishes you wanted. It's time to eat. Yiching nodded and then smiled at Suwon behind him. I'm going to eat. Good luck. Suwon responded and then turned to enter her room. Master. Ziyi felt Suwon enter the room and then turned to look at Yiching. Master, is there a problem with that female cultivator? No. I just thought she looked cute so I wanted to greet her. Yiching muttered to himself. As he spoke, the corners of his lips curled up into a joyful smile. Hearing his words, Ziyi didn't say anything else, but he was cursing in his heart. Yiching had always been cold and afraid of trouble. Why would he greet someone for no reason? It seemed like he needed to pay more attention to Yicheng's changes, deep into the night. Right now, Suwon and Little Plum Blossom were in a deep sleep at the inn in Xiang City. She didn't know that Qian, and Jiu were being chased by a large group of people in a mountain far away from Flaming Mountain. Sister Jiu, I can't run anymore. Little Qian's face was pale and she panted, sitting on the grass. Ah, my little ancestor. Seeing that Qian was about to give up on running, Jiu glared and transformed back into her original form. Under the night sky, a giant red man-eating flower wrapped around Qian's slender body and started running. Damn! What kind of sin did I commit? Jiu was crying in her heart as she ran. That day, after Suwon left with Little Plum Blossom, Qian had been in a deep sleep. She probably needed a long time to wake up. Jiu finally got out of the medicinal valley and suddenly wanted to play around. She placed Qian in an inn near the ferry and then strolled around the nearby town. When the sun set and Jiu returned to the inn, she discovered that Qian was gone. Because the ship back to the medicinal valley would only depart the next day, Jiu was sure that Qian didn't return to the medicinal valley. Then where did she go? Did she chase after Little Snake and Little Plum Blossom? Needless to say, Jiu guessed correctly at the crucial moment. However, although Qian wanted to find Su Wan and the others, she couldn't tell the direction. Therefore, she headed towards Tai's sect. Jiu asked around for Qian's whereabouts. Thankfully, the little loli was quite recognizable. Jiu found Qian after 3 days. At this time, the little loli had already fainted by the side of the road. Jiu Axian anxiously wanted to bring her to an inn to rest. In the end, before the two of them left the forest, they encountered a group of Greater One Sect disciples fighting with another group of black-robed men. The tragic thing was that the Greater One Sect disciples were completely annihilated in their own territory. As the only witness of this battle, Jiu started her life of being chased. Of course, she still had to bring Qian, this little burden who was in a coma for a while. Jiu was speechless. Chapter 399. It was a dangerous night and a silent mountain. Jiu, who was surrounded by men in black, looked at the unconscious Qian in her arms. She wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Could it be that I am destined to perish here? The wind rose and the sword fell. When the sword with spiritual chi came, Jiu was ready to fight to the death. At this moment, an umbrella-shaped spirit treasure suddenly flew in front of her and blocked the attack for her. This is Han Yu. Jiu's eyes lit up. The next moment, Han Yu and Yuan Shao appeared in front of her. So this was the path that Han Yu and Yuan Shao had to take to get back to Lingbao's sect. Han Yu, although I can't explain the reason, I can't let Miss Jiu be in danger. Yuan Shao, damn it, following the male lead is always restless. How long would it take for this to happen? Boss, where are you? Let's go. Because of Han Yu and Yuan Zhao's help, Jiu protected Qian while retreating. The three of them were on par with the men in black. He. At this moment, a strange fragrance wafted through the wind. Accompanying the fragrance was a woman in red. She wore a red off-the-shoulder dress, revealing her fair shoulders. A red veil covered half of her face. Under the moonlight, only a pair of sparkling eyes could be seen. The arrival of the woman in red made the scene strange. Jiu, damn, they actually wore the same clothes. She wouldn't admit that the woman in red had more aura than her. The woman in red glanced at Jiu and then at Han Yu and Yuan Shao. She seemed very interested. The next moment, black killer bees flew out of her hand. The black bugs merged with the night, making it impossible to see with the naked eye. Killer bees. This is, everyone, be careful. She's Dong Qingxiu. Yuan Shao had already guessed the identity of the woman in red. Joyful Gate Saintess, Dong Qingxiu. She liked to wear red. She was unrestrained and ruthless. The most difficult thing to guard against was that she kept a large group of killer bees. If this was a mission enforcer, Yuan Shao immediately thought of a name. Could it be that Ding Zhezhe? Would the higher-ups treat her so well? While Yuan Shao was distracted, the killer bees were already right in front of him. Senior brother Yuan, be careful. On the side, Han Yu immediately took out a few of his newly refined protective magic treasures, but under the attack of the killer bees, they only lasted for a few seconds. It was rumored that Dong Qingxiu had already entered the late stage of gold core with the help of dual cultivation, and her killer bee had already entered the peak stage of gold core. Moreover, the attack power of the demonic beast was so great that it was equivalent to a human cultivator at the early stage of nascent soul. Not long after, Han Yu and Yuan Shao also began to feel a little powerless. Dong Qingxiu, who was dressed in red, was gradually closing in on the two of them. All those who were in the way, all those whose cultivation was lower than his, should be killed. This was the advantage of being an evil cultivator. He could kill the innocent without being suspected by anyone. Just as Dong Qingxiu was smiling and waiting for her victory, the wind suddenly changed. An invisible sense of danger suddenly sprang up from the bottom of her heart. Danger! Dong Qingxiu's pupils contracted. Hurry and retreat. Before her voice died away, the men in black around her, including Han Yu and the others opposite her, all fell to the ground along with the night breeze. A white figure walked over under the moonlight. His clothes fluttered, reflecting the man's jade-like face. Su Su. Dong Qingxiu froze and subconsciously wanted to run. But in the next moment, the man suddenly appeared in front of her. A pair of slender and powerful hands tightly gripped Dong Qingxiu's throat. Dong Qingxiu, who had just been exceptionally brave, was now like a newborn baby in front of him. She couldn't fight back at all. You... Dong Qingxiu struggled to speak, but the other party just gripped her expressionlessly as if he could kill her at any time. No, she couldn't die. Determination seeped out of Dong Qingxiu's gaze. In the next moment, her body suddenly exploded. Blood splattered everywhere and spiritual energy surged. Master Mo retreated. Not a single drop of blood splashed onto him. However, Dong Qingxiu exploded her body and her nascent soul escaped in the blink of an eye. She actually condensed her nascent soul. The cultivation world only knew that Dong Qingxiu had just advanced to the late golden core state not long ago. She wasn't even in the perfect golden core state. But right now, Dong Qingxiu exploded her body and her nascent soul left her body. Master Mo stared at the direction Dong Qingxiu's nascent soul escaped in and couldn't help but sneer. As expected of the most outstanding mission enforcer over there. You hid yourself really well. Unfortunately, although you escaped this time, your nascent soul can only possess people with lower cultivation. Next time we meet, you still won't be my match. The night wind seemed to be getting stronger, causing Master Mo's robes to flutter. He turned around and looked at Zhou, Little Qian, Yuan Shao and Han Yu who had also fainted. In the end, Master Mo's gaze landed on Yuan Shao. He walked up and flicked his sleeves. Yuan Shao's eyelashes trembled and he furrowed his brows. Wake up. Master Mo kicked Yuan Shao harshly a few times. Yuan Shao immediately opened his eyes. Seeing the gentle young master, he widened his eyes in alarm. Was it Su Su? The mission enforcers couldn't be blamed for thinking it was Su Su. Master Mo's image and temperament in addition to his amazing cultivation made him look like Boss Su. Tell me what you know or else I'll kill you right now. Master Mo looked down at Yuan Shao on the ground. His tone was cold. This tone didn't sound like Su Su. Maybe he wasn't a mission enforcer. Yuan Shao rolled his eyes and immediately revealed a cautious expression. Hero, we don't know anything. If you don't believe me, you can wake up my junior brother and ask him. We're just passing by without doing anything. You should be magnanimous. Just treat us like farts and let us go. Ha! Hearing Yuan Xiao's words, Master Mo laughed lowly. I originally didn't want to use the soul-searching technique on you, but since you're not cooperating, don't blame me. As he spoke, Master Mo had already bent down, his slender fingers inching closer to Yuan Shao. Wait! Wait! Hearing Master Mo's words, Yuan Shao immediately panicked. What do you want to know? Clue. The clue you got after entering the mission world. As soon as young Master Mo finished speaking, Yuan Xiao's face immediately turned pale. As expected of a mission enforcer. Plus, he was a serial killer. Actually, Master Mo only found out about the clue a few months ago. That time, he went to a valley to pick herbs and encountered a mission enforcer on the way. During their confrontation, the mission enforcer told Master Mo that he accidentally obtained a plot clue in order to survive. In the end, Master Mo naturally went back on his words and sent the mission enforcer to heaven. Ah, that's right. He had no principles at all. Forgive Master Mo for killing people cleanly. Even though he had killed 5 or 6 mission enforcers, this was the first time he found out that this mission world had hidden plots and main and side plots. Chapter 400. Clues from the mission world. Hearing Master Mo's words, Yuan Shao knew that he was in trouble. Nanny. If such a strong person wasn't Su Su, then it must be Su Rui. Yuan Shao narrowed his eyes and smiled at Master Mo. You're Su Rui, right? Stop fooling around. We're on the same side. Saying this, Yuan Shao made a gesture. It was a very small gesture, but it was the secret code gesture in Su Su's department. Only people in their department knew it. Amen. In principle, that should be the case. But seeing Yuan Shao's gesture, Master Mo's gaze turned colder. It seems like you don't want to live anymore. As he spoke, he raised his hand and lifted the defenseless Yuan Shao into the air. The poisoned Yuan Shao couldn't resist at all. Compared to Dong Qingxiu, he looked more miserable. Plus, he hadn't reached the nascent soul realm yet. He couldn't even detonate his body and his nascent soul could leave his body. What a scam. Okay, you win. I'll talk, okay. Yuan Shao looked at the person in front of him with a gloomy expression. Look, the pretty boy lying next to him is the male lead of this world, Han Yu. He has a heaven-defying magic treasure. I don't know what it is, but it has definitely merged with him. Others won't be able to covet it. He has a childhood sweetheart in the Greater One sect. This time, we were planning to go to the Greater One sect to see his childhood sweetheart, Li Ruoxue, on the way here, but in the end, we encountered this matter. It was really like following the male lead, trouble would always be there. There was no way to stop it at all. Yuan Shao was regretting it. Nanny. He shouldn't have made such a scam decision. Great. The male lead was fine and he was about to become cannon fodder. Male lead, Han Yu. Master Mo looked at the unconscious Han Yu. His innate bone was average and his spiritual root was mottled and messy. People like him usually didn't have high comprehension abilities. Since he was chosen as the male lead, perhaps he had great perseverance and luck. But so what? Ha, male lead. Master Mo sneered in disdain. That's useless news. Because I only need to move my finger and this world will have a different male lead. Yuan Shao was speechless. That was way too brutal, wasn't it? The male leader Darren hasn't done anything, yet you're going to ruin his life at the pinnacle. Speaking of which, why didn't I think of this before? It doesn't seem too difficult to change the male lead. At this moment, Yuan Shao felt gloomy about his own intelligence. Alright. In that case, you can die in peace. Yuan Shao said, wait a minute, what's going on? You're not keeping your word. Before Yuan Shao could react, he felt a chill in his chest. As blood splattered, he saw a cold and heartless expression flash across the man's gentle face. Su Rui, just you wait. Ding. A gentle reminder, there are currently 18 mission enforcers alive in the mission world. Everyone, please continue to work hard. When this prompt flashed in the minds of the 18 mission enforcers, in the Lost Space headquarters, a certain man retreated from his connection cabin in an aggressive manner. Complaint, I want to complain about Su Rui. Ahem, young Master Yi, you're out so soon. Chi Yu's teasing voice answered Yi Kanhuan. Why are you here? Yi Kanhuan stared at Chi Yu in shock. Didn't Su Su not bring this guy to participate in the competition? Boss and the others aren't here. I came to the headquarters to submit some materials. Saying this, Chiyu smiled and waved the materials in his hands. Oh my, everyone in our department is still alive. Plus, most of the eliminated mission enforcers were killed by our department's mission enforcers. Sigh, it's so lonely being invincible. Invincible my ass. Your department has 3 participants. 2 of them are perverts and the remaining one is an experienced and prudent military advisor. Damn, can't you let me play around happily? Yi Kanhuan decided to go to the headquarters lounge and eat 2 bags of spicy gluten to calm down. Mission World, Xiang City, inside the relay station. When the system beep flashed, Su-won suddenly opened her eyes. There were still 18 people. She remembered that there were over 30 mission enforcers when she was in Wanyao Mountain. But after a month, there were only 18 people. What did this mean? A fierce tiger came out of the mountains. That's right. They didn't come with good intentions. Su-won immediately calmed down and adjusted her breathing. Of the 18 people, there were 17 more besides her. She hadn't encountered many people up until now. She didn't dare to rashly make a judgment on suspected mission enforcers. In this cultivation world where the strong preyed on the weak, you must have absolute strength if you want to kill everyone. Cultivation and background were Su-won's weaknesses. How could he quickly improve his cultivation without arousing the suspicion of others? There must be a way. There must be a shortcut. Su-won told herself to calm down. This wasn't the first time she experienced adversity like this. There must be a way to counterattack. Room 98 of the relay station. When Su-won woke up, Yi Ching in room 98 also opened his eyes. There were 17 more. No, excluding his colleagues from his department, there were 15 more mission enforcers. It was much faster than he had expected. But, the fewer mission enforcers left, the harder it was to be discovered. Yi Ching had predicted this. He knew that mission enforcers who could keep their composure knew how to lie low. There was no time limit to cultivation. Sometimes, decades and centuries passed in the blink of an eye. There was still a long road ahead. The ones who could make it to the end were the true opponents. That night, how many people were tossing and turning, unable to sleep? Someone in Xiang's sect looked up at the starry sky and then continued to meditate and cultivate. In Tianyun's sect, a person wearing a gray disciple robe held a tortoise shell and divined for himself. Amen, there's a great danger in the north. He planned on going back to ask his master for some resources and then going into seclusion. He would come out after 8 to 10 years. Amen, then he happily decided. In Daki's sect, because he was distracted, the magic weapon that he had refined for 7 days and 7 nights was destroyed. But that person didn't feel heartache. He just stared blankly at a certain place with a complicated gaze. There were a lot of similar situations. The dozen or so people scattered across Tsangyue mainland all had different feelings, but they all knew the same thing. They knew that from now on, they might have to fight alone. Would there be companions among the remaining dozen or so people? Although the code words of each department were complicated, they could still be imitated and learned. Therefore, even if they met a companion, could they be sure that they were real? Don't trust anyone. Don't give yourself away. Don't let anyone find you or suspect you. The first person to give himself away, the first person to be found, would die. Now, it was time to test everyone's true strength. Bad background. Don't worry. As long as you can hide from others, you'll have a lot of time to cultivate. Bad background. Don't worry. As long as you can display shocking talent, you'll be taken in by a first-rank sect. Bad background and talent. Don't worry. The mission world was alive. Other than a dozen mission enforcers, there were tens of thousands of cultivators on the mainland who weren't just decorations. Chapter 401. The next day, the sun shone brightly. Su-won woke up from her meditative state. Not long later, she heard the door next door open. Then the courtyard started to become noisy. It seemed like everyone couldn't calm down. As the time for the second round of exams arrived, the 100 or so candidates followed Xiang Sek's main examiner to the location of the second round of exams, Xiang Sek's mountain gate. Xiang Sect was located on the peak of Flaming Mountain. Flaming Mountain was a very famous holy land in Kunlun mystical region. Apparently, 8,000 years ago, the Flame Immortal once faced the rising sun and comprehended Taoism here. Afterwards, this mountain was called Flaming Mountain. Of course, legends were mysterious and magical. In reality, 8,000 years ago, the Flame Immortal shamelessly chased after his wife here to watch the sunrise. The second round of exams today is very simple. From the mountain gate in front of us to the main door on the mountain, there are a total of 3,129 steps. Everyone who can reach the main door within an hour will become Xiang Sek's outer sect disciple. Hearing the examiner's words and looking at the towering steps in front of them, everyone revealed a solemn expression. Large sect's exams were very difficult. Among the 100 or so people, it wasn't their first time coming here. They knew the mystery behind this. From Xiang Sek's mountain gate to the main door, there were over a dozen protective formations on the short 3,000 steps. Plus, there were only 5 formations used for the exams. When recruiting inner sect disciples, they would activate many formations to test a person's intelligence, perseverance, and potential. The more potential a person had, the faster they would walk. Disciples like this would naturally be highly sought after by the elders of the main peaks. When recruiting outer sect disciples, Xiang Sect would only activate the Heart Demon Illusory Formation. This matrix was just like its name. It tested your inner demons and your temperament. If you didn't have any flaws in your heart and didn't have any darkness, then you would naturally be able to leave quickly. Usually, the first to arrive would be approved by the elders, and the last to come out would be those with bad temperaments or those with evil intentions. People like that usually wouldn't be chosen by Xiang Sect. As the examination began, many people saw the sand in the hourglass flowing bit by bit. Many people rushed up the stairs, but some people only took a few steps before they froze on the spot. Their faces turned pale and they vomited blood. This was a backlash from their own heart demons. Seeing some people being crippled on the spot due to their heart demons being too strong, those old examinees who were still standing at the foot of the mountain all sighed. Every year, there would be people dying here. This was no longer a rare occurrence. It really wasn't easy being a wandering cultivator. Didn't everyone risk their lives to have a place to settle down? How could any rogue cultivator who could fight until now dare to say that their hands were clean and their hearts were red? Su-won saw that there were people who had walked a few hundred steps. She couldn't help but take a deep breath and step onto the first step. It was really easy, no different from walking up the stairs normally. Su-won walked like she was walking on flat ground, climbing up 300 steps in one breath. Right now, she had already left a lot of people behind her. But there were still a few figures struggling to walk in front of her. Right now, there were 4 figures standing side by side in front of the main peak's entrance. They all wore golden robes, the robes of Xiang Sect's elite disciples. Senior brother, the wandering cultivators participating this year seem to have good cultivation and temperament. They're much stronger than last year. Senior brother, do you think there's a chance that some of these people will be promoted to the inner sect or even the sect's elite hall? Hearing the junior brother's discussion, Xiang Sect's eldest disciple, Zhang Jingyi, looked calmly at the people below. No matter what, as long as they can contribute to the sect, they're worth nurturing. Saying this, Zhang Jingyi's gaze involuntarily landed on a purple-clothed girl. She walked as if she was flying, reaching over 1,000 steps in the blink of an eye. So fast. Low-level inner demons couldn't affect her speed at all. Then what about high-level inner demons? Humans weren't saints. Everyone had their own flaws. Zhang Jingyi didn't believe that there was no one in this world who didn't have flaws. After reaching the 900th step, Su Wan also froze when she saw the purple figure in front of her. Wasn't that the purple clothes made by Yi Chang's side? She didn't expect her to be this amazing. However, she could tell that the purple-clothed girl was impatient and didn't want to fall behind. Su Wan rested for a while. Seeing that the people behind her were about to catch up, she then slowly walked up. 1,000, 1,100, 1,300, 1,500. When Su Wan reached the 1,999th step, she felt her vision blur and she immediately appeared in a familiar garden. This was Su family's back garden. There were sounds of moaning and moaning coming from the flower bed. Su Wan couldn't help but walk forward. There were two people entangled in the flower bed. The two people were her sister, Su Yu, and her fiancé, Xing Yi. Ha! Su Wan sneered. Her sneer made the two people in the flower bed come back to their senses. Xiao Wan. Su Yu pulled her clothes over to cover her body in a panic. The face that Su Wan was extremely familiar with wore a wronged and sad expression. So you could be like this after being caught cheating. Su Wan, don't make things difficult for Xiao Yu. You don't need to say anything. I know you love her. You've always loved her. I'm just her substitute. Su Wan smiled. While smiling, she plucked a red rose. The thorns on the rose, stem pierced Su Wan's fair and tender fingers, leaving drops of blood. Just a substitute. Xing Yi, what do you think you are in my heart? You're not even worthy of being a substitute. Saying this, Su Wan waved her hand and rose petals fell. Everything in front of her shattered. Su Wan walked up the 2,000th step without hesitation. After the 2,000th step, Su Wan walked really slowly. She couldn't even see many people around her. There were only two figures in front of her. One was still that purple figure. She stopped at the 2,500th step, seemingly unable to move forward. As for the other person who was far ahead, Su Wan could only see his back. Judging from his back, it should be a man. Could it be Yi Qing? Su Wan kept feeling that Yi Qing carried a mysterious aura, a dangerous and mysterious aura. She calmed herself down and continued walking forward. When she reached the 2,500th step, Su Wan felt a pain in her head and then flames filled the sky. No matter if it was the Qin family or the Su family, they had nowhere to run. They all cried in panic. They all died. They shouldn't be alive. This is the wedding present I prepared for you. The most extravagant fireworks in history. Li Fei, do you like it? Su Wan heard a cold female voice. She turned around to see herself wearing a white bridesmaid attire standing in front of a man with a smile. Xiao Wan, do you know what you're doing? Pity flickered through Li Fei's gentle and elegant face. You've destroyed everything. This world will also collapse. Su Wan, no one can survive. This is my wish. If I, Su Wan, can't get it, then I'll destroy it all. Su Wan sneered at the man in front of her. Isn't it better if everyone dies together? Let's continue fighting to the death in our next lives. Saying this, she raised the remote control in her hands. As long as she pressed the button, the entire villa area would explode and turn into a sea of flames. Wife, don't play anymore. At the moment of imminent peril, a gentle and doting voice rang from behind Su Wan. This voice was, Su Wan suddenly turned around. The sea of flames around her disappeared and so did Li Fei. In the dense fog, only a slender and elegant figure faintly appeared in front of Su Wan. Su Wan's heart beat fiercely. She recklessly chased after that figure. Closer, closer. When she finally grabbed his hand, the slender figure slowly turned around. Only a pair of cold and sharp eyes could be seen in the fog. Su Wan suddenly opened her eyes. The fog around her dissipated. She had left the illusion. At this moment, there was someone standing beside her. His fingers gently grasped her ice-cold fingertips. "Are you okay?" The man's cold voice carried faint concern. Chapter 402. No, nothing. Su Wan answered Yi Cheng's question while retracting her fingers as if she got electrocuted. Yi Cheng smiled calmly. "That's good. I saw that you weren't in a good mood when I came over, so I was a bit presumptuous. Miss Xiaoqing, please don't mind." Su Wan lowered her eyes. Her heart wasn't calm right now. That figure, those eyes, that voice, just who was it? She clearly didn't remember that person, but her heart told her that she should remember and not forget. Even if she died, she shouldn't forget. That was the person and memory she couldn't forget. Could it be that my memory was sealed? Su Wan's gaze flickered. That's right. This wasn't rare among mission enforcers because there were many mission enforcers in the lost time space. They were divided into many different departments. So, the person in her memory was also a mission enforcer. Plus, he must have participated in this trial too. Otherwise, her memory wouldn't have been sealed. In that case, was his memory also sealed? Was he still alive? Su Wan thought of many things in an instant. When she looked up again, she noticed that Yi Cheng was still standing by her side. "How about we walk together?" His tone was neither too fast nor too slow, but it made it impossible for anyone to refuse. "Okay." Su Wan nodded. Therefore, the two walked up shoulder to shoulder. When they reached the 3,000 steps, Su Wan didn't enter the illusion again. Yi Cheng's expression didn't change either. It seemed that in the final test, her heart and his were both flawless. Kinship, love, friendship. Su Wan only entered the first and second level of the illusion. She didn't experience the third level. Because she had never been betrayed by her friends. In the past, she didn't have friends, but now. Su Wan couldn't help but smile. Now, no matter if it was the lost time space or the mission world, she had friends. She was no longer the Miss Su who lived in her own world and was hostile towards everything. Who changed her? Who was she willing to change for? Su Wan lowered her gaze and took the last step. "I will find you." Definitely. Su Wan and Yi Cheng practically landed at the same time. The two were tied for third place. Ziyi was a bit earlier than the two and the other was a tall man. "Young master." Ziyi nodded at Yi Cheng. She was only delayed by the second illusion. Everything else went smoothly. Actually, Ziyi had been secretly observing Yi Cheng. According to her memory, Yi Cheng was a cold-blooded and emotionless person who didn't know what love was, so he wouldn't have any flaws. But Yi Cheng also stopped at the second illusion formation. Although it was only for a short moment, Violet Knight still noticed. Could it be? Yi Cheng was also a mission enforcer. Ziyi didn't dare to jump to conclusions, nor could she act recklessly. She knew Yi Cheng's cultivation was much higher than hers. Before she had absolute confidence, she couldn't alert him. Welcome to Xiang's sect. 2 hours later, only 37 people managed to reach the top of the mountain. According to the rules of previous years, the top 5 would directly become outer court deacons, while the rest would become ordinary outer court disciples. Xiang's sect's outer court disciples and deacons had their own residences. Although it couldn't compare to the inner court disciples' residences, it was still a decent place to stay. At least, the courtyard was filled with flowers and plants and had abundant spiritual influence. Plus, it was very quiet, suitable for cultivation. According to the sect's rules, everyone had to change into a black outer court disciple's uniform after entering the sect. Every month, they could go to the sect's hall to collect their monthly supplies. When they weren't on duty, they could also take turns to listen to the elders' lectures. It could be said that Xiang's sect was the most tolerant sect towards these wandering cultivators. Su Wan collected her uniform and sect token and then followed the senior disciple to Wuxiao Peak where the outer court disciples lived. Her residence was in the middle of a row of deacons' rooms. It was a decent location. Ziyi lived in the courtyard to her left and Yi Qing naturally lived in the courtyard to her right. Towards her two new neighbors, Su Wan could only chuckle. These two people were not easy to deal with, and now he was going to live under their surveillance. Okay. Anyway, we're here to hide from the world and cultivate. After entering the sect, Su Wan began her true cultivation life in the sect. Every night, she would meditate and cultivate. Every day, in addition to completing her own work, she would go to the main peak's teaching location to listen to the lectures of those powerful people with high cultivations. Time passed by unknowingly and Su Wan's cultivation improved day by day. At this moment, two white figures, one big and one small, were standing at the foot of the purple cloud sect's flaming sun mountain. Brother, are we really not going to find sister-in-law? Qian lifted her head and blinked her clear eyes, looking at Master Mo in confusion. Master Mo was speechless. Qian good girl. Didn't brother tell you? That's not sister-in-law but a greedy little snake. Not little snake. She's sister-in-law. She's sister-in-law. It was clear that Qian had gotten along well with Su Wan on the ship and treated her as the closest person to her. She's clearly sister-in-law. Brother, why won't you admit it? Did you guys fight? Is there a third party? Are you guys trying to break up? Master Mo was speechless. What the hell is all this nonsense? Who taught you this? Sister Joe. Seeing that Master Mo was a bit angry, Qian immediately lowered her head and tugged at the corner of her clothes, putting on a pitiful expression. I asked Sister Joe why sister-in-law left without saying goodbye. She told me that sister-in-law fell in love with someone else. Joe. Master Mo narrowed his eyes hearing his sister's reply. Joe's mouth was becoming more and more unreliable. Once we get back to the Medicinal Valley, he'll definitely lock her up and not let her eat meat or drink blood. What did she mean by falling in love with someone else? What did she mean by falling in love with someone else? My wife, Master Mo froze. No, Little Snake wasn't someone he liked either. Why did he care about this? Right, he didn't care. He didn't care at all. He was definitely going to kill her the next time they met. Let's go back to the Medicinal Valley. Master Mo pulled Qian wanting to leave. At this time, Qian's gaze brightened and she jumped up. Brother, look. Sister-in-law came out. Sister-in-law came down the mountain. Master Mo froze hearing Qian's words. He turned around and looked up. As expected, he saw the familiar slender figure. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Her complexion was rosy and her face was glowing. Plus, her cultivation had reached the peak of the perfected foundation realm. It seemed like she could break through to the golden core realm at any time. Who knew that this little snake was living quite well? Brother, look. The man wearing black keeps smiling at sister-in-law. Does he like her? Hearing his sister's words, Master Mo's gaze immediately swept over. Why is it so cold all of a sudden? The innocent Xiang sect's outer sect disciple, Dong Xiaoyang, looked around for a long time and then turned his head and smiled at Su Wan. Deacon Qing, you have to take care of this younger brother during this mission. Saying that, he smilingly stuffed a piece of spirit stone into Su Wan's pocket. Su Wan was speechless. Chapter 403. Taiyi's sect wasn't too far from Xiang's sect. If a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator used their spiritual power to travel day and night, they could get there in 3 days. This time, Su Wan was sent out by the outer sect elder to carry out a simple task. Plus, they didn't need to give anything too valuable. It was just a wedding gift that an elder from Xiang's sect wanted to give to his martial nephew. Speaking of Taiyi's sect, it had a deep relationship with Xiang's sect. The ancestors of the two sects were said to be brothers from the same sect. It was just that one was obsessed with sword cultivation while the other was skilled in talismans and formations. Later on, the two established their own sections. That was how Xiang's sect came to be and Taiyi's sect came to be. Because Su Wan had always lived in seclusion in the sect and her appearance was also very indifferent, the outer sect disciples under her, other than Dong Xiaoyang who was very familiar with them, the others were a bit afraid of her. Along the way, the 10 people kept moving forward in silence and did not encounter any danger. What Su Wan didn't know was that there were 2 figures behind them, following them like shadows. Brother. Seeing her brother's cold expression, Qian blinked and said weakly, "Brother, are you still angry with sister-in-law? Why don't you go find her?" Master Mo said, "What does a kid know?" He was afraid that if he touched her, he wouldn't be able to resist the urge to kill her. Cough. Okay. Master Mo was conflicted. He had never been so conflicted. He had been in the mission field for more than 10 years, and he had met more than 10 mission enforcers. Other than those with higher cultivation than him, he had calmly brushed past them. As for those with lower cultivation, which one of them hadn't been killed by him in a matter of minutes? Yet, not only could he not do it to this little snake, he was even tricked by her. Master Mo stared at the slender figure and couldn't help but fall into a daze. 3 days later, Su Wan brought her people and finally arrived outside the Greater One Sect's mountain gate. Unfortunately, the moment they arrived at the mountain gate, they saw the Greater One Sect's disciples surrounding 2 people and fighting fiercely. Su Wan's gaze froze seeing the red figure in the crowd. "It's Sister Jo." Little Plum Blossom's voice rang in Su Wan's heart. She had been cultivating in peace. If Su Wan didn't have to go out this time, Little Plum Blossom wouldn't have come out. Deacon Qing. The people behind them naturally saw the situation in front of them. Dong Xiaoyang couldn't help but lean on Su Wan's side and softly asked, "Those 2 people seem to have high cultivations. Deacon Qing, can we pretend not to see them?" Su Wan, just how afraid of death are you? Kiss. Little snake, no, little green. Little Qing, come and save me. Before Su Wan could respond to Dong Xiaoyang, Jo, who was surrounded, cried for help. Su Wan, sure enough, one shouldn't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but one should be afraid of a pig-like teammate. Why don't you just wait for me to go easy on you? Why did you have to call me? Am I on now? What about on top? Or should he go up? Fuck. Let's go. Of course, this was for the sake of the male leader Darren, not for the man-eating flower. That's right, the one being attacked with Jio was the male lead we hadn't seen in a long time, Han Yu. Logically speaking, Han Yu was already at Golden Core Realm and Jio's cultivation level wasn't bad either. The 2 of them shouldn't have been suppressed to such a sorry state. Su Wan quickly walked forward, her gaze flickering. In the end, her gaze landed on a woman in a wedding dress who was crying in the crowd. Seeing that the woman kept staring at Han Yu, Su-won understood. Nanny. The male lead had a lot of women. This was yet another peach blossom calamity. I'm Xiang Sec's outer sect attendant, Little Qing. These two are my friends. I don't know why Tai Sec's senior brothers keep attacking them. Is there a misunderstanding? Hearing Su-won's words, Tai Sec's people finally stopped attacking, but they still surrounded Jiao and Han Yu, their expressions solemn. Attendant Qing. The leader was still wearing a festive sword robe. Hearing Su-won's words, he couldn't help but take a step forward. His gaze turned cold and he said in a low voice, "There's no misunderstanding. This is my, Duan Qingfeng, and Han Yu's personal grudges. Today is my wedding day, but he came here to cause trouble. Please don't interfere. Senior brother Duan." At this time, Li Ruoxue, who was sobbing, had already walked to Duan Qingfeng's side. "Let Han Yu and the rest go. I've already agreed to dual cultivate with you and become your cultivation partner. Why do you keep making things difficult for them? Shua. Don't agree to him. I have a way to help you." Ouch. Han Yu still wanted to say something, but Jiao suddenly jumped up and gave him a knock. "You what? I told you to mind your own business. Humans are so troublesome. What does it have to do with you?" Han Yu was speechless. "How is this my business? Ruoshua's matter is my matter. Plus, didn't you notice that she doesn't want to marry him at all?" Han Yu hesitated before arguing. He and Li Ruoxue were playmates. Seeing his playmate go through something like this, Han Yu knew that he couldn't just stand by and watch. Hearing Su-won and Han Yu's conversation, Su-won's gaze flickered. Did she encounter the main plot? Could Li Ruoxue be the female lead? While Su-won was thinking, Li Ruoxue suddenly pulled out her sword and placed it on her neck. "Duan Qingfeng, let them go. Otherwise, I'll immediately die in front of you." Su-won was speechless. So this was popular in the cultivation world too. Cry, throw a tantrum and cut one's neck. Duan Qingfeng's gaze turned gloomier. "You're actually willing to die for him?" While Duan Qingfeng and Li Ruoxue were looking at each other affectionately, Su-won immediately signaled Jiao with her eyes. Jiao immediately understood and quietly pulled Han Yu to retreat. Han Yu, who was dumbfounded by Li Ruoxue's actions, froze on the spot. He only came back to his senses when Jiao pulled him to retreat. He broke free from Jiao's hand and shouted, "Ruoxue, don't do anything stupid." With that said, Han Yu had already rushed over recklessly. "Male lead, you're a fraud." Su-won was speechless. Did he activate the melodramatic and brainless mode? Wouldn't everyone be happy if he left quietly? Rushing up like that was forcing Lady Ruoxue to her death. As expected, seeing Han Yu's actions, Duan Qingfeng, who was already at the peak of the Golden Core realm, immediately released his personal magic weapon, the Tianji fan. "Han Yu, be careful." At the critical moment, Li Ruoxue immediately charged over and blocked the fatal blow for Han Yu. Blood splattered everywhere. The bride wearing the red wedding dress smiled and fell into Han Yu's arms. The young boy from before had finally grown into a young elite who could take charge of his own affairs. Furthermore, he had also realized his dream of cultivating to become an immortal. Unfortunately, she could no longer accompany him down this path. Li Ruoxue looked at the red sky and closed her eyes with a smile. Duan Qingfeng. The male lead, who was enraged because of his childhood sweetheart's death, looked at Duan Qingfeng with a ruthless expression. He was clearly planning on using a big move. Su-won immediately raised her hand, gesturing for the people behind her to retreat. She was also cautious. "Brother, sister-in-law is in danger. Hurry and go save her." Xian, who had been following Su Wan's group, naturally saw Han Yu and Duan Qingfeng's duel. She looked nervously at her brother. What danger? She'll be fine as long as she doesn't meddle in other people's business. Master Mo's expression was indifferent, but he couldn't help but stare at Su Wan's back. This little snake didn't have the personality to meddle in other people's business. Why did she meddle in Han Yu's business? Could it be that she also knew Han Yu's identity and wanted to suck up to the male lead like Yi Kangwan? Thinking of this, Master Mo felt inexplicably unhappy. Zhou was speechless. Chapter 404. Duan Qingfeng, go die. Han Yu, you asked for it. Right now, Han Yu and Duan Qingfeng had started a 1v1 duel. Su Wan immediately retreated while calling Zhou to her side. She planned on watching how the male lead would slap the elite disciple of a large sect. This was definitely possible. Xiao Qing, who do you think will win? Zhou looked at Han Yu's reddened eyes and couldn't help but ask worriedly, Han Yu will be fine, right? You care about him. Su Wan looked at Zhou in astonishment. This little man-eating flower actually cared about people. Plus, the other party was a man. Could it be that she, seemingly not noticing the complicated look in Su Wan's eyes, Zhou immediately leaned against her and sighed. Xiao Qing, you don't know. That guy's blood is actually a great tonic. I really want to drink it. Dead blood isn't fresh and it's not nutritious. It can't be regenerated either. Su Wan was speechless. As expected, she was thinking too much. Don't expect a man-eating flower to date the male lead. Sister Zhou, is that true? Little Plum Blossom's excited voice rang in their ears. I want to drink it too. I haven't drunk blood in a long time. I feel like my petals aren't red anymore. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Zhou smiled confidently hearing Little Plum Blossom's words. Then she smiled at Su Wan and asked, Xiao Qing, do you want some too? I'll pass. Su Wan immediately shook her head. She really couldn't understand the plant's desire for human blood. Could it be that they were born with this? Bang! Just as the three of them were discussing the moving blood bank of the male lead, a sudden burst of sound rang out. Billowing dust mixed with flying sand and stones came flying toward them. Be careful. Everyone, use your spiritual qi to protect yourself. Su Wan had already opened her spiritual qi protective cover in the first instant, but in the next second, the spiritual qi cover in front of her was immediately pierced through. Fuck you. Just what kind of move did the male lead use? So ruthless. The whistling airflow mixed with sand and stones came head-on. Su Wan was planning to take out the talisman in her bosom when a white figure suddenly floated in front of her. He lightly raised his hand and propped up a powerful spiritual qi cover, blocking all the attacks outside. Ah! Seeing the familiar figure in front of her, Su Wan's expression changed again and again. It was actually Master Mo. At this time, Master Mo, who had helped Su Wan block the sand, smiled and turned around. He looked indifferently at the dumbstruck little snake. Quickly apologize to me, beg for my protection, and I will forgive you. Master. Under Master Mo's expectant gaze, Zhou immediately pounced overexcitedly. Master, you're here to save me. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. While Zhou walked over and blocked Master Mo's line of sight, Su Wan immediately turned to run. Stop right there. Behind him, the man suppressed his anger and said, Little snake, get over here immediately. Su Wan, does this commanding tone want me to roll over and accept my death? Do you think I'm an idiot? Su Wan decided not to listen to him. She'd be safe if she ran back to the group. No matter how strong Master Mo was, he couldn't go against the entire Xiang sect. Seeing that Su Wan insisted on escaping, Master Mo's smile immediately disappeared. His figure flickered and then he appeared in front of Su Wan. "I told you to come over. Didn't you hear me?" Lifting his hand to pinch her chin, Master Mo's gaze carried a never-before-seen ruthlessness. Su Wan froze on the spot, being stared at by his eyes. This gaze was so familiar. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before. While she was in a daze, Master Mo had already grabbed her slender figure and brought her to a relatively safe place. "Do you remember what I said last time?" Ah. Su Wan looked up at Master Mo fawningly. "Master, which sentence are you talking about?" "I said it before." Master Mo leaned over slightly and leaned in front of Su Wan. "The next time we meet, I'll definitely take your life." Su Wan, that sentence. Naturally, Su Wan remembered it. But hearing Master Mo mention it again, Su Wan's gaze shifted and she immediately looked at him pitifully. "Master, don't kill me. I really didn't do it on purpose last time. Plus, didn't Qian wake up? She's still alive and kicking. How about this? When my cultivation gets higher, I'll go look for the 1,000-year-old chalcedony fruit and return it to you, okay?" "Ha! What do I need the 1,000-year-old chalcedony fruit for?" Master Mo couldn't help but sneer. At this moment, there was a sudden scream from the crowd not far away. "Senior Brother Duan! Senior Brother Duan!" As it turned out, the groom, Duan Qingfeng, also died under the male lead's big move. It was a joyous day and the bride and groom were both receiving a bento box. The person who set the date definitely didn't have good intentions. Evil creature! How dare you hurt my grandson? Amidst everyone's sorrowful cries, an aged voice rang angrily. Then a figure flew out of the mountain gate like lightning. Beat the young one to death and the old one came. What a way to level up by beating monsters. Su Wan pursed her lips. Usually, the male lead would be defeated and humiliated first. Then a benefactor would come to help him and he would get out of danger safely. Then, he would come back to take revenge. Just as Su Wan was complaining, Hanyu was beaten up by Duan Qingfeng's grandfather to the point of vomiting blood. Seeing the male lead's weak breathing on the ground, Su Wan couldn't help but look around. Where was the benefactor? It couldn't be the person next to her, right? Thinking of this, Su Wan couldn't help but look at Master Mo a few more times. Feeling Su Wan's gaze, Master Mo revealed his signature warm smile. "Don't look at me. I won't save him even if you look at me. Everyone who was suspected to be his love rival should die." Ah. Master Mo felt like his thoughts were a bit strange. Whatever. In short, he wouldn't save the male lead. Who cares if he's dead or alive? Ah. Su Wan froze, feeling Master Mo's emotions. Could it be that she miscalculated from the start? Master Mo really wasn't a mission enforcer. Or maybe he didn't know Hanyu's identity at all. Just as Su Wan was hesitating, a burst of faintly discernible music suddenly sounded from the distant horizon. Immediately, the sky was filled with golden light and a beautiful woman dressed in yellow clothes descended from the sky. "Elder Duan, don't harm his life." The woman's voice was ethereal and pleasant to listen to. Just like her, she was otherworldly. Everyone froze when they saw the woman's appearance. Of course, there was one exception. Master Mo furrowed his brows at the woman dressed in yellow who suddenly appeared. Could the male lead in this world be a harem? Otherwise, how could there be so many beauties? Thinking of this, Master Mo became even more unhappy. It seemed like he had to keep a close eye on the little snake. The little snake might be abducted by someone at any time. Chapter 405. Because of the yellow-clothed beauty's arrival, Tai's sex atmosphere changed again. Elder Duan looked at the yellow-clothed woman's clothing and extravagance and couldn't help but furrow his brows. Fairy, how should I address you? Elder Duan, you're too polite. My name is Yun Xian. I'm an ordinary disciple in name of Tianyun sect. Hearing Yun Xian-er's words, Elder Duan's gaze changed. Yun Xian-er. Wasn't she the disciple of Tianyun sect's head, Tianqing Zi? How was she ordinary? His background was simply too big, okay. So it's Fairy Yun. Forgive me for not going out to greet you. May I know what brings you here? Elder Duan's tone immediately became very gentle, and his attitude became very humble. Hearing Elder Duan's words, Yun Xian-er smiled faintly. Her beautiful eyes looked around and finally landed on Han Yu. My master told me to bring someone back to see him. Yes, it's him. As she spoke, Yun Xian-er pointed at Han Yu on the ground with her slender finger. At this moment, Han Yu looked really wretched. Actually, Yun Xian-er didn't understand why her master wanted her to come all the way here to save this unknown person. But her master could always see through the secrets of the heavens. The secrets of the heavens couldn't be revealed. Her master couldn't tell her, so she could only follow his instructions. Tianqing Zi actually wanted to see Han Yu. Could it be that he had another identity? Hearing Yun Xian-er's words, Elder Duan's heart was in turmoil. Duan family had become enemies with this kid today. If he was alive, there might be a chance for him to make a comeback. Then Duan family's future would be worrying. Plus, he couldn't openly reject Tianyun sect's request. Elder Duan's eyes turned rapidly, thinking of a solution. Seeing Han Yu bleeding, Jiu couldn't help but run over and support him. Are you okay? You're bleeding so much. Sob, sob, sob. It's such a waste. This is fresh blood. I'm fine. Han Yu struggled to get up and turned to look at the sad girl in red. He couldn't help but smile at her. Jiu, don't be sad. I'm really fine. Jiu was speechless. You're fine, but I'm not. This blood is mine. It's all mine. Su Wan couldn't bear to watch Jiu and Han Yu's interaction. Male lead, to think that you would have such a day. Ahem, speaking of which, that Yun Xian-er, no matter if it was her looks or her aura, they were all full of heroine style. So, male Lord Darren, shouldn't you fall in love with the female Lord Darren at first sight and shed tears of gratitude? Why did you turn around and show your affection to the little man-eating flower? Su Wan was complaining when her expression suddenly changed. Jiu. Be careful. It turned out that after Jiu appeared beside Han Yu, Yun Xian-er's expression immediately changed. She released a magic treasure without hesitation. Xian-er, you have to remember, if you see any red-dressed women around Han Yu, kill them immediately. Don't hesitate. Master's warning was still ringing in her ears. When Yun Xian arrived, she first saw Li Ruoshua's corpse on the ground. She thought it was the woman in red that Master mentioned. It wasn't until Jiu rushed to Han Yu's side that Yun Xian noticed there was a woman in red here. She immediately took out the artifact that Master gave her before she left and threw it out. The golden light that filled the sky illuminated the entire mountain forest. It was a magic treasure that looked like a treasure pouch. When the pouch opened, the golden light was endless. This was, under the golden light, Jiu immediately cried out in pain. Little snake, I feel terrible. At this time, the plum blossom on Su Wan's head also cried out in pain. Even Su Wan herself felt the blood in her body freeze. Could this magic treasure be? Master Mo's expression changed. He waved his hand and pulled Su Wan into his arms. Little snake, stop holding on. Change back to your original form and hide in my arms. This is Heavenly Z, that old man's devil restraining bag. Heavenly Z was the sect master of Tsangyue mainland's first-rank sect, Tianyun sect. His cultivation was unfathomable. At the same time, his magic treasure was naturally very powerful too. This devil restraining bag was specially used to deal with devil cultivators. It seemed like that old man had calculated that Jiu was Yun Xian's rival in love. Was that why he did this? Ah! At this moment, Jiu had already reverted to her original form. The usually arrogant man-eating flower had its head drooped down listlessly. Not long after Jiu transformed, Su Wan also felt her body changing. She didn't dare to stop and immediately transformed back to her original form, burrowing into Master Mo's arms. Master Mo's expression turned cold when he felt the little snake's cold body. Seeing that Jiu was about to be killed by the magic treasure, Hanyu suddenly pounced on her. Don't hurt her. Jiu, don't be afraid. Drink my blood and you'll get better. Jiu was speechless. Do I even have the strength? Her consciousness was a bit hazy right now. Feeling that Hanyu had been blocking the golden light for her, Jiu couldn't help but think that humans weren't that annoying. Hanyu was a nice person too. Enough. At this time, Master Mo suddenly tossed out an ice magic treasure. Frost filled the sky, temporarily freezing the golden light from the devil restraining bag. She's my servant. Tianyun sect, don't go too far. Master Mo was really annoyed right now. He really wanted to kill someone. Yun Xian froze seeing Master Mo make a move. Then she retracted her magic treasure. Daoist friend, are you Master Mo of the Medicinal Valley? Ha! Master Mo sneered. So you people from Tianyun sect can still see me. I thought you were all arrogant. Daoist friend, you must be joking. Yun Xian put on a noble and elegant posture and smiled. Which male cultivator wouldn't fall head over heels for her smile? Yet, Master Mo was completely immune to her smile. What are you smiling for, ugly? My little snake was almost killed because of you. Tianyun sect claims to be the #1 sect in Tsangyue. Is this how you do things? Although my servant is a demon, she didn't harm anyone. Instead, she's been helping Daoist friend Han enthusiastically. I don't know what secret your Tianyun sect knows, but you want to snatch Daoist friend Han and kill his friends. What a scheme. Master Mo's voice was really loud. Everyone was in deep thought hearing his words. Han Yu's expression changed drastically. Tianyun sect always claimed to be omniscient. Could it be that they knew his little cauldron's secret so they came to snatch it and kill everyone around him? They're going too far. Thinking of this, Han Yu's gaze towards Yun Xian turned cold and unfriendly. That's why Master Mo, your verbal skills are really well trained. You've successfully brainwashed the male lead. Yay! Hearing his words, Yun Xian's face turned cold. Master Mo, don't speak nonsense. My master really just wants to invite Daoist friend Han to Tianyun sect as a guest. Invite? Master Mo sneered. Hanyu, are you going? I refuse. Chapter 406. Yun Xian froze hearing Han Yu's words. Why didn't this person know what's good for him? While Yun Xian was in a daze, Elder Duan immediately waved his hands and had Tai sect's people retreat. Elder Duan naturally didn't want him to receive Tianyun sect's protection. He rejected Yun Xian today, offending Tianyun sect. This was something he was happy to see. Yun Xian's face was flushed as well. She looked at Han Yu angrily. do you know what you rejected? Who didn't know Tianyun sect in Songyue mainland? Who dared to reject Heavenly Z's invitation? This Han Yu must be out of his mind. Hearing Yun Xian's question, Han Yu smiled instead. I'm not deaf. Of course, I know what I rejected. Daoist Yun, do you not understand what I'm saying? You don't know what's good for you. Yun Xian waved her sleeves angrily. She grew up under the Heavenly Z's wings and was loved and chased after by countless male cultivators. When had she ever been in such an embarrassing situation? Master Mo wasn't enough. Even a small Golden Core Realm cultivator dared to look down on her. Humph. Let's go. Yun Xian turned and left with her entourage. Fairy Yun, take care. Elder Duan, who was standing behind her, happily sent the young lady off. Then, he turned around and looked at Han Yu with a smile. Humph, damn brat. Who can save you now? Master. Seeing that Elder Duan was going to deal with Han Yu again, Zhou immediately looked up pitifully at Master Mo. Master, save him. Master Mo was speechless. I don't want to do anything at all. What should I do? Sniffle. Sister Jiao is so pitiful. Brother Han is pitiful too. Little Plum Blossom had transformed into her original form and hid in Master Mo's arms. Seeing this, she started crying softly. Little snake, think of a way to save Sister Jiao. You're the best. Su Wan was speechless. I can't even save myself. What can I do? Do I have to beg? Master Mo? No. He'll definitely look down on me. But, Su Wan felt really conflicted. Looking at the half-dead male protagonist, Han Yu's performance just now was really worthy of a high score. Moreover, if he died just like that, wouldn't the artifact that he owed me go up in smoke? When has Su Wan ever made a losing deal? Yes, the male lead could not die. Young master. Su Wan finally weakly said, Master, save them. They're so pitiful. Are you begging me? Master Mo smiled and looked down at the little snake curled up in his arms, only revealing its green head. If you beg me, I'll consider it. Su Wan, young master, your character is broken. We haven't seen each other for a while. Have you been possessed? Su Wan looked at Master Mo a bit suspiciously. In the end, she stuck out her tongue and blinked her red eyes, acting cute. Master, you're a physician from the Medicinal Valley. You're the kindest. Even if I don't beg you, you'd still help Joe, right? No. Hearing Su Wan's words, Master Mo continued to smile. Although I'm from the Medicinal Valley, I'm a poison cultivator. I only kill people and not save people. If you don't beg me, I won't help. How could he be so childish? This feeling of déjà vu, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Su Wan blinked her eyes and kept pleading. Master Mo felt incomparably satisfied hearing her words. This was a magical feeling. In short, Master Mo was happy right now. Therefore, Elder Duan was going to be unlucky. Little bastard, go die. On the other side, Elder Duan fiercely flew over and slapped Han Yu fiercely. Han Yu was ready to die. In the next second, a white figure floated over, and a black poisonous fog spread out. Not only did it block Elder Duan's attack, but it also made him scream and retreat. Master Mo, are you going to become enemies with Tai sect? Oh. Hearing Elder Duan's angry roar, Master Mo's gentle face wore a faint smile. I don't even care about Tianyun sect. Who do you think Tai sect is? One Elder Duan couldn't represent the entire Tai sect. But one Master Mo represented the entire medicinal valley. That's right. People with status were just that willful. In Songyue mainland, who dared to offend the medicinal valley? Did they want to die after offending a doctor in the cultivation world? Although the medicinal valley wasn't a first-rank sect in Songyue mainland, they were the most powerful and had the most connections. People didn't want to offend them the most. Let's go. Master Mo waved his hand and Zhou immediately supported Han Yu and followed behind him. Qian, who was left in a safe area by Master Mo, naturally went up to greet her brother and his group happily. Right now, the most dumbfounded ones were Xiang sect's outer sect disciples. Who could tell them what had happened? Kidnapping the bride, fairy, and poison saint. Furthermore, why did their deacon turn into a snake? Hey! Deacon Qing, no, Master Mo, wait for me. While everyone was still flabbergasted, the quick-witted Dong Xiaoyang had already caught up to Master Mo's footsteps. As a wandering cultivator, the three most important qualities were thick skin. Thick skin. One must be thick-skinned. Dong Xiaoyang could tell how amazing Master Mo was. He would only be an outer sect deacon his entire life in Xiang's sect, but his future would be limitless if he followed Master Mo. Seeing Dong Xiaoyang's actions, the others also came to a sudden realization and chased after him. They couldn't stay in Tai's sect anymore after what happened today. They would be punished if they returned to Xiang's sect. Therefore, they might as well join Master Mo. Master Mo was speechless. Seeing a large group of people chasing after him, his expression turned cold. Dong Xiaoyang's gaze shifted and he immediately smiled at Su Wan in Master Mo's arms. Attendant Qing, everyone will follow you wherever you go. Seeing how loyal our brothers are, just let the master lead us. Su Wan smiled and said, "You're right." Su Wan was speechless. Do you guys even have any loyalty? We haven't even done anything yet and you guys are betraying Xiang's sect. Su Wan glanced at Dong Xiaoyang speechlessly. Then she looked at Master Mo above her head. Master, look, you guys can return to Xiang's sect. I'll tell Xiang's spiritual master about this. He won't punish you guys. Saying this, Master Mo waved his hand and summoned his flying magic weapon. He brought Qian, Zhou, and Han Yu with him, riding the clouds and leaving. If it wasn't for Little Snake begging him, he wouldn't even want to save the male lead, much less let him lead a large group of passers-by. They were lucky that he didn't chop them up into pieces. Dong Xiaoyang was speechless. As expected, he was still despised. Damn! Why was it so hard to stand out? Thinking of this, Dong Xiaoyang suddenly thought of someone, Yi Qing. They were both Xiang sect's outer sect deacon. Yi Qing was doing very well in the sect and he even gathered a lot of forces. Chapter 407. After leaving Tai sect's territory, Master Mo brought everyone to a clean cave residence. This was where he and Qian had settled down recently. This used to be a wandering cultivator's residence. The wandering cultivator had failed his tribulation and his soul had dissipated, so this residence had been left unused. Master Mo was someone who was afraid of trouble. Since there was a ready-made place like this, he could make do with it after tidying it up. After entering the residence, Master Mo tossed Zhou, Han Yu, and the others a few bottles of medicinal pills. He also tossed Little Plum Blossom to Qian, and then entered the cultivation room. After entering the secret cultivation room, he carefully released Su Wan from his arms. She was curled up in her green snake body, her entire body abnormally cold. Little Snake. Master Mo was shocked. He carefully touched her body. Right now, she couldn't maintain her human form anymore. Although Master Mo came from Medicinal Valley, he didn't know much about demonic cultivators. He really didn't know what to do in this situation. Su Wan's consciousness was muddled too. The injuries she received were different from Zhou's. Su Wan was about to advance to the Golden Core realm. A human's Golden Core was also known as a Devil Core in the Devil region. The golden light from Yun Xian, Er's bag had injured Su Wan. At the same time, it had stimulated the remaining medicinal effects of the 1,000-year-old chalcedony fruit. Now, she was injured, but she unexpectedly received a chance to advance. This was the border between life and death. If she succeeded, she would form a devil core. If she failed, her soul would dissipate. Su Wan's consciousness was foggy. She couldn't use her spiritual qi right now. The spiritual qi in her body was in a mess, and the medicinal effects of the 1,000-year-old chalcedony fruit were strong. The spiritual qi in her body twisted together, causing Su Wan to curl up and tremble non-stop. "Little snake, are you okay?" Seeing that Su Wan didn't react, Master Mo lifted his hand, wanting to inject his spiritual qi into her. But the moment he touched her body, he was struck back by a golden light. This was that golden pattern. Master Mo watched quietly as Su Wan's body was enveloped by the golden light. At this time, Su Wan only felt that the spiritual power in her body gradually calmed down. She wanted to mobilize the spiritual power in her dantian, but the spiritual power seemed to break away from her control and began to circulate on its own. Su Wan's sea of consciousness also gradually turned from chaotic to clear. She felt as if she was in another world. Here, spiritual qi was abundant and there were heavenly treasures everywhere. This place was simply a paradise on earth. Su Wan looked at the strange scenery in her sea of consciousness in astonishment. Then she suddenly realized that the mountain in front of her was a bit familiar. Isn't this Xiang sect's flaming mountain? At this moment, there was no Xiang sect's main hall that pierced through the clouds. There was only a man and a woman. These two people, Su Wan subconsciously stepped forward and walked closer. She finally saw the appearance of one of them. Su Wan covered her mouth in astonishment. Wasn't the cultured and elegant man in red before him Su? No, it wasn't Su. Su Wan walked closer. Right now, the man was shamelessly pulling the woman's hand. Qin, look at how beautiful the sunrise is. Haven't you always wanted to see it? Get lost, who wants to see it? You were the one who dragged me here, okay? Hearing the man's voice, the woman in white immediately turned and glared at him. Su Wan also saw the woman in white's appearance clearly. Her skin was smooth, her eyebrows were long, her gaze was bright. She was as beautiful as a fairy. When the two of them stood together, they looked like a perfect match. "La Yen. You heartless person. I know you're here. Get out here right now." A woman's sharp voice rang from below the mountain. Hearing her voice, the two's expressions changed. "Humph. Your romantic debt is here." The fairy in white curled her lips. Though she was angry, she was still charming. The man in red smiled faintly. He gently snapped his fingers and two figures, one white and one black, appeared. "Ah sure, ah ye, hurry and chase that crazy woman away." "Yes, master." Two figures flew away as fast as lightning. Su Wan didn't see the appearance of the two people clearly. She only knew that the one dressed in white was a man and the one dressed in black was a young girl. La Yen, Flaming Mountain. Could it be that this man who looked exactly like Su was the legendary Flame Immortal? And that woman in white was the Jinghong fairy that Little Plum Blossom mentioned? Su Wan was surprised by her guess, but everything changed in the blink of an eye. Endless flames and continuous thunder. Heavenly punishment descended. Heavenly law was furious. Su-won saw that the world was in a mess. The flame immortal, who had lost his usual elegance, was currently hugging the woman in red in his arms with a pained expression. Enchanting. Don't go. Don't go. Jinghong Fairy struggled to open her eyes. She lifted her wrist, wanting to touch the flame immortal's face. At this time, Su-won stood by the side and saw the golden bracelet on her wrist. It was the same as hers. That bracelet really belonged to Jinghong Fairy. Then how did it end up in her hands and why couldn't she take it off? Su-won retreated a few steps and subconsciously touched her wrist. Although she was in her sea of consciousness, the bracelet on her wrist was still there. It was no longer a tattoo. It had turned into a real bracelet. This is a pseudo-immortal artifact. It doesn't have any offensive abilities. It can only conceal the ghost aura on you so that you can walk peacefully in the human world. A young man's voice rang in Su-won's ears. She remembered that this was given to her by an old ghost in a certain mission world. But Su-won didn't remember anything else from that mission world. But from the looks of it, this bracelet wasn't that simple. Su-won raised her wrist and seriously looked at the golden bracelet on her hand. At this time, the bracelet flashed and a Qin character was faintly discernible. Qin. Jinghong Fairy. As expected, this belonged to her. Su-won couldn't help but feel even more confused. Su-won's sea of consciousness turned chaotic again. Her consciousness gradually calmed down too. In the cultivation room, Master Mo watched as the golden light dissipated. Su-won, who was curled up on the praying mat, had her scales fall off again. By the time all the scales fell off, there was a green light flickering inside her body. That was her demon core. She succeeded in forming her core. Master Mo's gaze flickered. Before he could be happy, he saw Su-won gradually transform back into her human form. Naturally, she was naked right now. Ah! Master Mo blinked and took out a robe from his storage ring to cover her body. Looking at the sleeping girl, Master Mo's gaze gradually became complicated. Su-won. Why do I feel like you're so familiar? Although Su-won was just an unfamiliar name in his memory, and even when he saw this little snake for the first time in the mission world, he sensed her aura, but he couldn't do anything to her. Chapter 408. The moment Su-won succeeded in forming her core, Yi-ching, who was far away on Flaming Mountain's Wuxiao Peak, suddenly opened his eyes. Su-won, he murmured her name in a low voice. Lifting his hand, a golden bracelet also appeared in Yi-chang's palm. No matter if it was the shape or material, it was the same as Su-won's bracelet. Just that this bracelet faintly had the word Su on it. Qin, do you think our child will be a boy or a girl? What should we name it? I've already thought of a name. How about Su? Su. Why is his surname Su? Because my surname is Su. Do you have a problem with that? No. Wife, you're the best. No matter if it's a boy or a girl, we'll call him Su. Su. That was his name. Yi-ching clenched the bracelet in his hand tightly. Tsangyue Mainland, Su, am back. Tsangyue Mainland, desolate land. Amidst the mountains of corpses and seas of blood, a girl dressed in black walked barefoot. She stepped on the fresh blood, but her feet weren't stained with blood at all. The long sword in her hand kept dripping blood. A look of ecstasy suddenly flashed past her unchanging face. She felt that person's aura. Young master, are you back? I've been waiting for you for 1,000 years. At the same time, West Sea, Wanyao Mountain. Demon King Baiyi also looked in the direction of Kunlun Paradise with a complicated gaze. He also felt that the aura that had been dormant for 5,000 years had finally awakened. Kunlun Paradise, Tianyun Sect. Bang! The heavenly Z's astrolabe crumbled once more and he stood up in horror. This was impossible. This was impossible. Heavenly Z ran out of the hall with a pale face and ran into Yun Xian, who had just returned. Xian, hurry. Bring Han Yu over. Heavenly Z finally let out a sigh of relief seeing Xian. Thankfully, Xian was back. As long as Han Yu was here, he still had a chance to change the fate. Master, Han Yu he refused to come with me. Yun Xian looked at her master nervously. She wasn't a dumb vase. Seeing how anxious her master was, Yun Xian immediately knew that she had made a mistake. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. What? As expected, after hearing Yun Xian's words, Heavenly Z took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Could it be the will of the heavens? 5,000 years ago, the flame immortal's self-destruction almost destroyed everything. Now, Zhangyue mainland was facing an even greater crisis than 5,000 years ago, but now, apart from the Heavenly Z, no one knew of the hidden danger beneath this peaceful world. At this time, the lost time-space, the mission enforcer headquarters. Su Lang, you're abusing your power for personal gain. A dignified voice resounded. The person's back was facing the door, so no one could see his face. However, just by listening to his voice, one would feel an invisible pressure just by looking at his back. Booze. The middle-aged man smiled sorrowfully. Qin is my daughter and Asu is my grandson. I did tamper with the time and space of this trial. It has nothing to do with the logistics department. Boss, if you want to punish someone, punish me alone. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Punish you? The man in front of the window sneered. Last time, when you made an exception and let Su enter another mission enforcer, I turned a blind eye. Now, you're more daring. Su Lang, do you know how much effort the headquarters spent to prepare for this trial? How much time was wasted? You actually changed the space without saying a word. Do you know the consequences of your actions? Do you know what's hidden in Zhangyue mainland? Zhangyue mainland, thinking of the past, the man's gaze gradually calmed down. That year, he used all his strength to protect that child. He was the one who sealed that child's emotions and brought him back to the headquarters, nurturing him into a mission enforcer without any desires. Su. He was Qin son. He was the king of the headquarters. He was the heir he recognized. Only such a strong, wise, emotionless and desireless man could inherit his legacy and replace him to manage the millions of mission enforcers. But now, Su returned to Zhangyue mainland. Su Lang didn't know. Su didn't know either, but he knew the secret. The flame immortal didn't die after self-destructing. He was still alive. He was sleeping somewhere in Zhangyue mainland. He was waiting for thousands or even tens of thousands of years for someone to wake him up, but now, his son Su returned. This wasn't the worst. The worst was that as the ultimate boss of the lost time space, Qiyu felt that the seal in Su's heart was loosening not long ago. That's right. Qiyu, who Yi Kanwan bumped into, actually had another identity. He was the most mysterious boss in the headquarters. No one could see his face. The so-called burying heart box did exist. The outside world thought that Su didn't have a heart, but Qiyu was misleading everyone. Su did have a heart, but he sealed all his emotions. These years, he was like a machine, wandering in different time spaces. No matter what kind of opponent he encountered, he could easily deal with them. Until he met that woman in that time space. Su-won. Chi-yu couldn't forget this name. After Su-su met her, the seal at the bottom of his heart loosened. When Chi-yu found out about this, what he wanted to do was to erase that woman at the first moment. But unfortunately, at that time, the plane that Su-won was in collapsed and Su-won was actually brought back to the lost time-space by Su-su. Seeing that the two of them no longer intersected, Chi-yu was still not at ease. He began to probe and assign some difficult tasks to Su-su, letting him come into contact with all kinds of women. Those women, regardless of appearance or figure, were all better than Su-won. But those women of all shapes and sizes could no longer raise the waves in Su-su's heart. It seemed like his silent heart only had a special reaction towards that one person. Su-su, who had lost his emotions and desires, just subconsciously paid attention to Su-won. He didn't even know that it was love. You fell in love with that person not because that person was different or outstanding. Or maybe it was because she was her. At a certain moment, she touched the softness in your heart. You fell in love and that was love. Once you fell in love, it was hard to pull away. Chi-yu knew this better than anyone else. Feeling Su-su's change, Chi-yu decided to take action himself. He transformed into a new mission enforcer and entered Su-su's department, taking on the identity of the villain boss. In the 9th Nightmare world, Chi-yu wanted to keep Su-won in that world forever. Unfortunately, he hadn't recovered from the battle with the heavenly law. Plus, according to the rules of the world, he couldn't use his true strength. He could only use his nightmare ability. But in the end, Su-won saw through him. Chi-yu had to admit that he looked down on that woman in the beginning. Because he underestimated the enemy, he missed his only chance to kill Su-won. After that, Chi-yu bought a locator and planned to continue chasing after Su-won. In the end, Su-rui appeared. Maybe this was fate. Su-rui appeared and then, he and Su-won fell in love. Chi-yu wanted to see this ending but at the same time, he was indignant and even regretful. He started to regret sealing Su-su's feelings. Sometimes you clearly met that person first and fell in love with that person. But in the end, that person got together with someone else. Just like him and Chin-her, Su-su and Su-won, was it because they didn't love enough or the time wasn't right? In short, it was really hard to find some people once they missed it. Su-lang, you can leave. This, perhaps, is also fate. Chi-yu sighed. Lian, I returned your son to you. Chapter 409. By the time Su-won woke up in the cultivation room, it was already the second day. She slowly sat up and the white robe slid down her body. Ah! Su-won froze. In the next moment, she wrapped the robe around her body and then glared at the smiling Master Mo. You, what are you doing here? Oh. Master Mo touched his chin. Give me back my clothes. Su-won was speechless. Ha, I'll give it back to you then. Who cares? Su-won waved her hands and the white robe flew in front of Master Mo, blocking his sight. By the time he put away the robe, Su-won had already used the fallen snake scales to transform into an emerald green dress in the cultivation room. The scales were a part of her body. Now that they transformed into her outer clothing, it was also an invincible magic weapon. Congratulations, you've advanced. Master Mo lifted his brows and smiled faintly at Su-won. Advanced, Su-won held her breath and calmed her heart. She looked inside her dantian and realized that she had formed her devil core. This. For some reason, Su-won thought of the scene she saw in her sea of consciousness again. It was that bracelet. The immortal chi contained in that bracelet helped her get through the crisis safely. That bracelet should have been Jinghong Fairy's inheritance. Why did it fall into the old ghost's hands? Plus, anything from the mission world couldn't be brought into the lost time-space unless that item was originally from the lost time-space. Su Wan was shocked. Legend said that Jinghong Fairy died in Sangyue mainland, but what if she didn't? What if she returned to the lost time-space before she died? Su Wan didn't dare to think further, but she knew that she vaguely knew the truth. The flame immortal who looked almost identical to Su Su. The metal bracelet that could appear in the lost time-space. The mysterious old ghost in the mission world, it's him. It's Su Su. He gave Jinghong Fairy's inheritance to her. Su Wan subconsciously clenched her other wrist. She didn't want it. She didn't need it. She didn't need that man's kindness or pity. Little snake. Seeing that Su Wan was silent, Master Mo didn't disturb her. But seeing Su Wan's expression change and her aura becoming chaotic, Master Mo couldn't help but take a step forward. He grabbed her hand and called her softly. Feeling a warm palm on the back of her hand, Su Wan suddenly looked up and met Master Mo's eyes. This pair of eyes was as clear as a spring, and at the same time, as deep as the sea. It's fine now. He smiled and slowly let go of his hand. Yes. Su Wan couldn't help but smile at him. Thank you. Although she didn't know the reason, the temperature of his palm seemed to have a magical power that could instantly calm her down. Don't say thank you, you're mine. Master Mo suddenly stared at Su Wan's eyes and said in a low voice, You haven't paid me back yet, so from this moment on, everything you have is mine. Oh. Hearing his declaration, Su Wan lifted her brows. Sure. Since you like me, I'm naturally willing to serve you for the rest of my life. She couldn't return to Xiang's sect anymore, but Su Wan had learned a lot from Xiang's sect. Staying by Master Mo's side seemed pretty good too. Plus, don't forget that there was a male lead here. Following the male lead would definitely bring danger and good fortune. Who knows, she might be able to reach the heavens one day. That way, she wouldn't need to hide anymore. By the time Su Wan and Master Mo came out of the secret cultivation room, Little Qian and Little Plum Blossom were resting. Meanwhile, Jiao and Han Yu were squatting in a corner of the residence, mysteriously researching something. What are you guys doing? Su Wan curiously asked a question. Hearing Su Wan's voice, Jiao immediately stood up and smiled. Little snake, you're fine now. That's great. Hurry and look. Han Yu found a mechanism here. There seems to be a huge secret here, so we didn't dare to open it. What? Hearing Jiao's words, Su Wan and Master Mo glanced at each other in shock. Damn. As expected of the male lead. The male lead's halo wasn't just for show. The two quickly walked over to where Jiao and Han Yu were and looked carefully. As expected, there was an inconspicuous notch in the corner. It did look like a mechanism. It seems like we need a key to open this mechanism. Su Wan pointed at the notch. That should be a place to put something. It should be this, right? At this time, Han Yu took out a strangely shaped stone from his arms. I found it under the bed just now. Su Wan was speechless. Put it in and try it. Master Mo said softly. Then, he used his spiritual chi to support a spiritual chi defense that enveloped the four of them. He had the highest cultivation amongst them. If anything happened, he naturally had to be the first to make a move. Okay. Han Yu nodded. He lifted his hand and placed the stone he picked up into the groove. In the next second, the five-colored light illuminated the entire cave. Master Mo immediately activated the formation at the entrance to prevent the light from spreading outside the cave and attracting other people's attention. When the light dissipated, the entire stone wall slowly parted to two sides, revealing a treasure vault in front of the four of them. Other than all sorts of weapons and magic weapons, there were also many materials for refining weapons, medicinal ingredients for refining pills, and even a lot of incantations and spiritual stones. It seemed like this was the solo cultivator's entire fortune. Master Mo couldn't help but be speechless. Though it was a simple treasury, the stone door was specially modified. No one could sense the existence of this secret room with their divine senses and perception. Master Mo's cultivation was already really high, but he still didn't notice this place. On the other hand, Han Yu accidentally found this secret room. One could only say that the male lead's luck was heaven-defying. Unexpectedly obtaining a large number of resources, the few of them were more at ease to cultivate in this cave abode. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years passed. Success. I finally transformed successfully. Today, a joyful and tender voice rang in the cave. Master Mo felt a bit of a headache seeing the little girl in red jumping around. Take little Plum Blossom out to play. Be good. Ah. 3 years passed and Qian had grown quite a bit. But the little Plum Blossom in front of her had become the youngest person in the cave. She looked like she was only 6 or 7 years old. However, little Plum Blossom didn't seem to mind her appearance. After she transformed into a human, she recalled some of her memories. She knew that she was a descendant of the Red Plum clan. Her clan had a long lifespan. Whether it was taking human form or growing into an adult, it would take a very, very long time for them to do so. 5 years after Little Plum Blossom successfully transformed, Su Wan successfully advanced to the nascent soul realm. Now, if her cultivation was placed in the Wanya Mountain, she would definitely be at the level of a demon general. This was all thanks to the countless spiritual stones in the cave. Plus, Master Mo would occasionally refine some medicinal pills to help people cultivate. Therefore, Su Wan's advancement speed was extremely fast. Chapter 410. Cultivation was timeless. In the blink of an eye, Su Wan had been in the mission world for 50 years. In these decades, her appearance hadn't changed much, but her cultivation had reached the peak of the nascent soul realm. She was just one step away from the divine realm. Master Mo had always been elusive. Su Wan couldn't see through his cultivation, but she was certain that he was a mission enforcer. Because there were a few times when Master Mo went out and came back, Su Wan heard mission enforcers being eliminated. Right now, there were only 8 mission enforcers left in the entire time-space. Su Wan knew that other than herself and Master Mo, there were 6 more. Cough. Thinking of this, Su Wan felt really sad. Because she hadn't accomplished anything in the past few decades. She didn't even kill a single person. But at least she survived. Although she relied on luck to survive until now, luck was also a type of strength. If you could keep hiding until there were only 2 people left, then you were a really amazing existence. In the blink of an eye, it was time for Tsangyue mainland's cultivation gathering that happened once every 200 years. Ever since the flame immortal self-destructed 5,000 years ago, the entire Tsangyue continent was almost destroyed. At that time, the other 4 immortal sovereigns worked together to seal the area where the flame immortal self-destructed. Only then did the entire continent survive. With the passage of time, the sealed area gradually became an independent small world. Every 200 years, the entrance to that small world would reopen for 2 months. During these 2 months, any sect in the Kunlun immortal realm was qualified to send their own disciples into the small world to gain experience and explore. After all, that was a world from 5,000 years ago. Who knows if there might be some rare treasures left behind. Plus, the flame immortal self-destructed there. Everything he had was pretty much left in that world. Right now, the key to open the door to that world was in the hands of the 3 first-rank sections. As the 200 years gradually approached, no matter if it was Kunlun Paradise or Wasteland, all the cultivators were getting restless. That world, Suwon lowered her eyes and looked at the golden tattoo on her wrist. If her guess was right, Su definitely wouldn't miss this opportunity that came once every 200 years. I can't miss it either. However, it was said that only sects of the 4th rank and above were qualified to participate in this grand cultivation event that was held once every 200 years. All the disciples who were qualified to enter the secret realm's small world were the elite disciples of the various large sections. Suwon didn't belong to any sect right now. It would be difficult for her to sneak in, unless, inside the cave. Young Master. Suwon placed a plate of freshly washed fruits in front of Master Mo with a smile. Master Mo opened his eyes to see his little snake trying to flatter him. He couldn't help but raise his brows. What do you want now? Don't ask for the myriad spirit pill, it's useless to you now. Young Master. Look, Shaoqing went to the mountains to pick these fruits for you. They are very fresh. You should eat them first. I'm not here to ask for pills. Young Master, you're so good to me. Can't I treat you well from the bottom of my heart? Master Mo, hee. After all these years, he had seen through this little snake's nature. Don't look at her sweet and gentle smile. If one day, her cultivation surpassed his, Master Mo didn't doubt that she would stab him in the back. People say that women are the most vicious. Master Mo smiled and picked up a grape to eat. The juice was sweet and tasted really good. Young Master, is it good? Suwon blinked her large eyes and moved closer to Master Mo, acting cute again. When I went to the mountains to pick fruits, I saw many cultivators heading towards Tianyun sect. Did something happen there? Master Mo nodded. Oh. Hearing Suwon's last sentence, Master Mo finally understood. The little snake was targeting the small world that opened once every 200 years. But speaking of which, he did make an appointment with Su to meet there. Master Mo was naturally Su Rue. These years, he had basically memorized everyone he had sensed in his heart. There were originally 18 people but only 8 were left now. He had sensed 6 of them a long time ago. The only one still alive was Su Wan from the destruction department, the little snake next to him. There was also Su from his department, Yi Qing from Xiang's sect. There was also Lin Ruo from the rebirth department. She had always been by Su's side. Her name was Ziyi now. The 4th person was Shang Nianhua from the transmigration department. Her current identity was Daki's sect's Ho Bingning. It was worth mentioning that Ho Bingning had a brother called Ho Bingchen. He was a refining genius in the younger generation of Daki's sect. Ho Bingchen was also a mission enforcer. He was Yun Sheng from the same department as Su Rue and Su. The 6th person was naturally Qin Yu from the rebirth department. His current identity was Tianyun sect's Heavenly Z's last disciple, Dugu Qingzhou. This identity wasn't normal. Plus, Qin Yu had been living in seclusion all these years, not giving anyone a chance. There was one more person. Su Rue actually couldn't sense that person's aura. There were only 2 possibilities for this to happen. 1. That person was too far away from Kunlun Paradise so Su Rue couldn't sense his existence. The second possibility was really dangerous. That person might be in the Kunlun Immortal Domain, and he might even be in one of these sections. It was just that he had a very special method to conceal all of his aura, so no one could sense him. If that was really the case, that person would be the most dangerous existence. Would the last 8 people be the final battle? Right now, lost time space. Yi Kanhuan was sitting there eating melon seeds while the lowly Ding Jijia sat next to him. Hey, handsome, give me something to eat. Is it fun for you to eat alone? Ding Jijia reached out her hand, but Yi Kanhuan turned around and took the melon seeds away. It's fun for me to eat alone. Ding Jijia was speechless. You're a dead virgin that no one wants. Humph, she turned around angrily. Seeing Ding Jijia's temper, Yi Kanhuan couldn't help but laugh. Hey, I'm just joking with you. Come here, I'll treat you to some. Tell me how you got eliminated? Ding Jijia was speechless. Forget it. I won't eat it. Ding Jijia's heart was filled with tears. Did you think it was easy for her? It wasn't easy for the heavens to make her the saintess of Happy Gate, Dong Qingxiu. Ding Jijia didn't even get to sleep with a few good cauldrons before she was almost killed by that pervert Master Mo. At the moment of life and death, she could only abandon her body and her nascent soul escaped back to Happy Gate. Ding Jijia thought about how there were countless beauties and handsome men in the joyous sect. She could just find a young disciple with a good figure to possess. However, the tragic thing was that the girl she was going to possess was actually a cultivation cauldron that the joyous sect master wanted. Thus, Ding Jijia was muddle-headed after the possession. When she opened her eyes again, she realized that she had been eaten clean by a certain gate master. Actually, this wasn't a problem for Ding Jijia at all, but the gate master of Joyful Gate was the #1 pervert in Sangyue mainland. After XXOO, he even wanted to suck a person's essence dry and turn a beautiful girl into a white-haired old woman. How could he do that? Without her youth and beauty, Ding Jijia felt that life was boring. Plus, she already possessed someone once and couldn't do it a second time. Ding Jijia, who was a little emotional, decided to just die and go back to the headquarters. Cough, that's right. Mission enforcers could commit suicide too. After coming back and seeing her beautiful and healthy body, Ding Jijia was immediately revived. However, she wouldn't tell anyone about committing suicide. Never. Chapter 411. Tianyun Sect. 200 years was like the blink of an eye for cultivators. Recently, Heavenly Z had been in seclusion and rarely went out. Seeing that the small world was about to open once every 200 years, he finally came out of his seclusion room. The moment he came out, he saw Dugu Qingzhou. He was Heavenly Z's last disciple 30 years ago. Out of all his disciples, Dugu Qingzhou was the smartest. Master. When Dugu Qingzhou saw the Heavenly Z, he quickly walked forward. Master, did you come out of seclusion for that matter? Haze. Hearing his beloved disciple's question, Heavenly Z sighed. All these years, he worked hard to break through to the next level in Heaven's secret stratagem. That way, he might be able to change Heaven's secret stratagem. Unfortunately, he lacked that little bit of luck and couldn't break through. Master, I know what you're worried about. Actually, Qingzhou, I have an idea, but I'm not sure if I should say it. Dugu Qingzhou looked at Heavenly Z, his tone respectful and careful. Oh. The Heavenly Z turned to look at Dugu Qingzhou's delicate and harmless face. He already knew that his little disciple looked gentle and harmless, but in reality, he was more ruthless than anyone else. Master, actually, we can. Dugu Qingzhou whispered a few words into Heavenly Z's ear. Hearing his words, Heavenly Z's expression changed again and again. This, although it was a little risky, if there was a crisis, that was the only thing he could do. Let me think about it. The Heavenly Z slowly walked away. Dugu Qingzhou stood on the spot, watching Heavenly Z leave. He couldn't help but smile faintly. Think about it. He knew that Heavenly Z had already made up his mind. The so-called think about it was just to make himself look more dignified. Cultivator. TSK, what a hypocrite. Dugachingjo smiled and turned around. He summoned his flying artifact and returned to his cave. Before he reached the door, he saw Yunxian, Senior brother Qingzhou. Yunxian looked at Dugachingjo with a smile. Her voice was really crisp and sweet. Xian why are you here? Dugachingjo was surprised by Yunxian's appearance. Speaking of which, he hadn't seen Yunxian for a long time. Only Heavenly Z knew about her whereabouts in the entire Tianyun sect. Actually, many disciples had been guessing the relationship between Yunxian and Heavenly Z. Most of them thought that Yunxian was Heavenly Z's relative, but Dugachingjo knew things weren't that simple. Yunxian looked like the standard female lead at first glance. She was beautiful, had amazing talent, and had a mysterious identity. She wasn't stupid either. Of course, the last point was the most important to Dugachingjo. I hate those stupid women who think they're beautiful and think they're infallible. Senior brother Qingzhou, I heard that the pocket world is about to open again. I want to go in, but I'm afraid that Master won't agree to it. At this point, Yunxian immediately pouted her lips in grievance. In the entire Tianyun sect, only Heavenly Z knew her true identity. Although Heavenly Z let Yunxian do whatever she wanted, he definitely wouldn't let her interfere with anything dangerous. But these 2 years, Yunxian learned to be smart. She realized that Master doted on his new disciple the most. Dugachingjo was a really smart man, so Yunxian started to get close to Dugachingjo. She would discuss anything with him. Senior brother, you have to help me. Here. Yunxian mysteriously took out a jade box from her storage bag and passed it to Dugachingjo. I brought this from home. Senior brother Qingzhou, it's for you. Dugachingjo didn't open the jade box, but he could still smell the unique fragrance in the air that made one feel relaxed and happy. This smell was 9-leaf Bodhi fruit. Legend had it that after eating it, one could become an immortal. Of course, in reality, the 9-leaf Bodhi fruit didn't have such magical effects, but it could increase one's cultivation. The most valuable thing was that it was also a healing medicine. No matter what your cultivation was or how heavily injured you were, as long as you still had a breath in you, you could eat it. Although you wouldn't be able to revive on the spot, you would definitely be able to leave the dangerous situation. This fruit didn't exist in Tsangyue mainland. So, Yunxian wasn't from Tsangyue mainland. Could it be that she was a person from the outside world? Ding! At this moment, a mechanical voice rang in Dugachingjo's mind. Congratulations, Mission Enforcer Qin Yu. You've guessed the female lead's true identity. You have a chance to ask a question. I will give you an answer based on the situation. Remember, you only have one chance. Gentle reminder, to be fair, it's forbidden to ask other mission enforcers' identities and locations. Thank you for your cooperation. Here it comes again. This wasn't the first time Qin Yu heard this voice. Last time, when he found out that Yunxian was the first female lead, this notification rang in his mind. Because he wasn't allowed to ask about other mission enforcers' identities and locations, Qin Yu asked about the male lead in this world. Then, Qin Yu realized that Han Yu's information wasn't useful to him at all. When he heard this notification again, he fell silent for a moment. Since I can't ask about other people's identities and locations, can I know which department the remaining people are from? This was probably what Qin Yu wanted to know the most. He wanted to know who his opponents were and whether his teammates were still alive. Sure. Then, the familiar mechanical voice rang in his mind. Currently, the 8 surviving mission enforcers are distributed as follows: 3 from the Restoration Department, 2 from the Destruction Department, 2 from the Rebirth Department, and 1 from the Transmigration Department. As expected, everyone from Su Su's department was here. Qin Yu had thought of this a long time ago. He and Su Su were old rivals. Plus, Su Su had Su Rui under him this time. Qin Yu had studied Su Rui for a period of time. He had been guessing that Su Rui had some unknown abilities. Otherwise, Su Su definitely wouldn't put him in such an important position. Plus, Yi Axan and Su Su had requested to seal Su Wan and Su Rui's memories. Did this have something to do with Su Rui's abilities? Because mission enforcers were scattered all over the country, some people might not run into each other for decades. Why did they have to seal their memories? Unless Su Rui had some special method to find Su Wan. Then, would he use that method to find the others too? This was very possible. Qin Yu, who had always calculated everything, also furrowed his brows. There were 2 more people in the Destruction Department. They should be Su Wan and Yi Axan. Qin Yu and Su Wan were familiar with each other and Yi Axan were old friends. He understood Yi Axan too well. She didn't seem to have any aura, but she was an opponent that couldn't be ignored. If Su Su was the king of mission enforcers, then Yi Axan was the uncrowned king. She might not have gotten any glory, but she had never failed before. There was a type of mission enforcers. They didn't have off-the-charts attack power, and they didn't look particularly amazing. However, it was this kind of ordinariness that made it easier for them to integrate into the mission world and become one of them. It was impossible to guard against them. Yi Axan was undoubtedly this type of person. Senior Brother Qingzhou. Seeing Duge Qingzhou in a daze after receiving the jade box, Yun Xian pushed him a bit nervously. Senior Brother Qingzhou, keep this. It's a token of my appreciation. Although Yun Xian entered the sect earlier than Duge Qingzhou, she was still a disciple right now. Therefore, she could only call herself junior sister in front of Duge Qingzhou. Chapter 412. The 9th day of the 9th month was the day that the small world opened. It was already the first day of the 9th month. No matter if it was the sects from Kunlun Paradise or the original sects from Desolate Land and Sunset Wasteland, they all gathered at Xiaoguang Town under Tianyun Sect's mountain. The originally peaceful town was bustling with people right now. The atmosphere was strange. It was noon when Su Wan followed Master Mo to Xiaoguang Town. The scorching sun was high in the sky and the town was bustling with activity. There was a lot of traffic, but she couldn't feel a trace of heat. Cold. The aura flowing around everyone was oppressive and cold. Master Mo didn't bring his sister this time, nor did he let anyone else follow. He only brought Su Wan this time. This might be the final battle. He knew that Su Su had a plan to capture everyone in one fell swoop at this time's banquet. This might be good, but Su Rui couldn't help but glance at Su Wan beside him. This little snake, no, maybe he should call her Su Wan. What should she do? This was what Su Rui was most conflicted about. After being together for decades, he realized that he couldn't do anything to her. He wouldn't even allow others to do anything to her in front of him. Su Rui was conflicted when he suddenly sensed a familiar aura. He looked up and saw a group of people wearing immortal robes walking into the town. Their robes all had a lifelike cauldron embroidered with golden threads. This was Daki Sect's disciple uniform. It was Yun Sheng and Shang Nianhua. Su Rui immediately saw the outstanding Ho Bingchen among the disciples. He was Daki Sect's genius, so he naturally stood in the middle of the disciples. The delicate and petite woman following him was his sister, Ho Bingning. Emma, Mission Enforcer Shang Nianhua. Su Rui's gaze flashed past the two people, not seeming to care much. But Su Wan, who was beside him, had long noticed his expression. Su Wan's gaze flashed, secretly remembering those two people. Master Mo took special care of them. They should be mission enforcers. Su Wan understood, but she continued to follow Master Mo calmly. Master, it seems like a lot of people came to Xiaoguang town. Those people are from Daki sect, right? Ah, isn't that Tai sect's people? There was also the Joyous Gate. How lively. Are we going to look for the people from Medicine Valley? No, let's find a place to stay first. Su Rui didn't want to meet up with the people from the Medicinal Valley right now. He actually preferred to be alone with her. Oh, got it. Su Wan answered and followed Su Rui into an inn in the center of the town. As soon as they entered the inn, the two felt cold all over. The hall of the inn was filled with Yin Qi. A large group of disciples of the Yin ghost sect in black robes were sitting in groups of 2s and 3s, chatting about something. In the innermost seat of the inn, near the window, sat a thin figure. His entire face was hidden in the darkness, and no one could see his appearance. However, the fiery red 10,000 ghost banner beside him constantly reminded everyone of his identity. The sect master of the dark ghost sect, Xian Yuanshi. Feeling Su Rui and Su Wan's gazes, Xian Yuanshi suddenly lifted his head. His face was still covered by the black mist. He glanced at Su Rui and then his gaze landed on Su Wan. After looking at her for a long time, he said in a low voice, "Are you Master Mo of the Medicinal Valley?" His androgynous voice was mixed with a bit of hoarseness. That's me. Greetings to Sect Master Xian Yuan. Su Rui nodded at Xian Yuanshi. When Xian Yuanshi glanced at him, Su Rui felt incomparably fearful. Very dangerous. This person. Ever since he came to Tsangyue mainland, Su Rui knew that this cultivation world had existed for thousands of years. There were a lot of hidden experts living here as well as many powerful figures. Mission enforcers didn't just have to be on guard against their opponents. They also had to be on guard against the local cultivators in this world. Disregarding everything else, there were definitely dozens of mission enforcers who were killed by the local cultivators. There might even be more than one. Therefore, Su Rui had to be careful facing Xian Yuanshi right now. Thankfully, Xian Yuanshi didn't seem to want to make things difficult for them. He just casually said a few words to Su Rui before leaving. Su Rui and Su Wan sighed in relief. The two asked for 2 rooms from the shopkeeper and then returned to their rooms to meditate. What Su Wan didn't expect was that while she was meditating in her room, Xian Yuanshi in the other room used his spiritual power to create a water mirror. Su Wan's every move appeared in the mirror. Xian Yuanshi stared at Su Wan's hand for a long time. In the end, he gently took off the hat on his head. The black mist on his face dissipated, revealing a cute and sweet young lady's face. This was Xian Yuanshi's true appearance. Even the elders of the Yin Ghost sect didn't know that their mysterious sect master was a young lady. No, to be precise, she had lived for over 5,000 years. She was once an abandoned child. The Flame Immortal adopted her. Because when the Flame Immortal picked her up, there was the word Asher embroidered on the parcel she was wrapped in, he gave her the name Asher. Xiao Bai. At this time, a soft call rang in Xian Yuanshi's ears. That voice was so familiar and intimate. Brother Bai. Xian Yuanshi turned around in surprise. As expected, Demon Emperor Bai was standing behind her. You're finally back. Bai walked up and gently caressed Xian Yuanshi's hair. You're really willful. Willful? Xian Yuanshi smiled faintly. She never felt that she had the right to be willful. In this world, if there was someone who loved you, doted on you, and tolerated you, then you could do whatever you wanted without any restraints. But when you had nothing, how could you be willful? Who were you showing your willfulness to? I sensed young master's aura, so I came back. Xian Yuanshi looked at Bei seriously. Brother Bei, what about you? Did you find a way to save sister-in-law Hongyu? No, but, Bei couldn't help but laugh. Little Plum Blossom has grown up and is living a happy life. Emin, you saw that little snake too, right? Bei's gaze also landed on the mirror in Xian Yuanshi's room. Su Wan was still meditating in the mirror. She actually has the mistress's belongings. I don't know if she's related to young master, so I let little Plum Blossom be with her. But she seems nice. Saying this, Bei smiled and looked meaningfully at Xian Yuanshi. Hearing Bei's words, Xian Yuanshi's gaze dimmed. Actually, you want to say that the bracelet is a token of love from young master, so she'll be young master's wife from now on, right? Brother Bei, what do you think I'm going to do to her? Do you think I'm going to kill her? Xian Yuanshi knew what Bei was worried about. Just like how he always knew what she was thinking. She worshipped the flame immortal ever since she was young. That worship was mixed with love and respect. After the flame immortal and Jinghong fairy got together, she was unhappy for a period of time. At that time, the straightforward Jinghong fairy placed her hand on her stomach and said, Xiao Shi, you're so smart and cute. When I have a son in the future, you can follow him. I'll betroth you to him. Are you willing? In the cultivation world, the age difference wasn't a problem. Plus, Xian Yuanshi was only a 16-year-old girl back then. At that time, Su Qin didn't know if she was pregnant with a boy or a girl. Maybe she just wanted to comfort the disappointed girl, but she didn't expect Xian Yuanshi to take it seriously. She was that pure and stubborn. She remembered Jinghong fairy's words and thought that she had to live for the young master. Young master, maybe you don't know me. Chapter 413. On the first night in Xiaoguang town, Su Wan didn't leave her room at all. She just sat in her room and meditated until the second morning when Master Mo called her out to eat breakfast. On the first floor of the inn, Su Wan saw Yi Qing wearing a golden robe. This was Ziyang's sect's elite disciple's uniform. It had just been a few decades, but his identity was different from before. Feeling Su Wan's gaze, Yi Qing looked up slightly. Seeing Su Wan and Master Mo's figures, Yi Qing's gaze froze for a second before he smiled faintly at her. Miss Qing, long time no see. Emin, Su Wan smiled at Yi Qing. Her gaze swept over Yi Qing's handsome face, but her gaze lingered on Zai behind him for an extra second. Zai. Su Wan had stayed in Ziyang's sect for a while, so she naturally knew that the girl's name was Zai. She also knew that Zai was a strong-willed and impatient girl. If she was a mission enforcer, Su Wan could probably guess her identity. As for Yi Qing, Su Wan had some guesses, but she wasn't sure. Just like Master Mo, Su Wan had her own guesses, but she didn't dare to make the final judgment. She had always been careful and would think twice before acting. At the final moment, Su Wan didn't allow herself to make any mistakes. She had lived peacefully for the past few decades. Now, she couldn't cultivate and live peacefully anymore. No matter if she drew a trump card or a bad card, she had to act this time. The four brushed past each other and sat on different tables. At this time, the Guiling sect's disciples also came down the stairs under Xian Yuanshi's lead. Young master, Xian Yuanshi immediately saw Yi Qing sitting next to Zai. She felt a familiar aura coming from Yi Qing. Xian Yuanshi would never forget this aura. Back then, the flame immortal had forged a magic weapon for his child. The shape of the magic weapon was the same as Jinghong fairy's bracelet. However, one had Jinghong Fairy's name engraved on it and the other had the child's name engraved on it. Back then, when the child was just born, the heavenly Tao sent down divine punishment. Because Bai and Xian Yuancher's cultivation levels were too low, they were thrown out of the boundary by Lai Yin. After the boundary disappeared, everyone disappeared. Flame Immortal, Jinghong Fairy, Plum Immortal Hongyu and the newly born young master were all gone. Xian Yuancher firmly believed that they were still alive. They were definitely alive because Jinghong Fairy said she came from another time and space. That was a very high-level realm, even higher than the celestial realm. Xian Yuancher didn't know what that time and space was like, but she had been waiting all these years. She was familiar with this aura, waiting for someone she had never met, 5,000 years. She had waited for a long time. She had waited without complaint or regret. Finally, the person in front of her had appeared. Xian Yuancher kept staring at Yi Qing, but she was very careful. No one noticed her gaze on Yi Qing. At the same time, no one noticed that Yi Qing and young Master Mo were communicating with each other using their spiritual power in the hall on the first floor of the inn. "Can you let Su Wan go?" Su Su froze hearing Su Rui's request. Then Su Su's cold voice rang in Su Rui's mind. "This is a test, not a game. If you can't do it, then hand her over to me. I'll take care of her." Su Su was really shocked right now because he had already sealed Su Rui's memory. He didn't think that Su Rui still couldn't do it to Su Wan. Plus, things were just so coincidental. Su Wan just had to meet Su Rui first. Speaking of which, everyone's identity was random. If one was lucky, they might be the proud disciple of a large sect. They might even be the sect leader or the main character. If they were unlucky, they might be cannon fodder, a supporting role, or even a passerby. This time, Su Wan clearly drew the worst luck. She possessed a green bamboo snake without any foundation or talent. But while she was unlucky, she was also lucky. Because the first person who recognized her was Su Rui and the second person who recognized her was Su Su. There was no need for any evidence. The first time Su Su met Su Wan, he felt the aura of the golden bracelet. He gave it to Su Wan. In this world, other than the Flame Immortal, only Su Su could remove the bracelet from her hand. The first time they met, Su Su didn't do it. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, but, before the test, he told himself that if he met Su Wan, he had to let her go this time. After all, they had been together for a long time. These years, Su Su couldn't remember how many time spaces he had entered or how many missions he had done. He was someone who didn't have any feelings or memories of anyone, but Su Wan was still fresh in his memory. In Su Wan's world, she was the eldest miss of the Su family. As a mission enforcer, the person Su Su possessed was called Li Fei. That year, Su Wan was abandoned by her fiancé. Being extreme, she planned on dragging Su Yu to die with her. Sensing that a blackened person had appeared in that world and affected the plot, Su Su immediately entered the mission space as a cultivator. He transformed into Li Fei and slowly got closer to Su Wan, capturing her heart bit by bit. After Su Yu and Xing Yi held their wedding, that world's plot finally returned to normal. At that time, it was time for Su Su to leave the mission. Before leaving, he agreed to his family's request to marry the eldest miss of the Qin family. Because of this wrong decision, an irreversible accident happened in that world. If I can't have it, no one else can have it either. She was clearly an extreme and selfish woman. That night, in the flames that filled the sky, watching her white dress turn fiery red, Su Su couldn't help but be in a daze. Right now, the countdown to the end of the mission kept ringing in his head. "This is the wedding present I prepared for you. The most luxurious fireworks in history. Li Fei, do you like it?" Su Wan stared coldly at the man in front of her and walked to him step by step. She had always been an extreme child. From birth, she was the one who wasn't blessed. Therefore, she fought and snatched. She wanted to change her fate, but in the end, she realized that everything was fake. Her so-called sincerity was a joke. Her so-called love was a lie. Li Fei, let's die together. Okay. At least at this moment, you're mine. Feeling the deep meaning in her gaze, Su Su couldn't help but say, Xiao Wan, do you know what you're doing? You've ruined everything. This world will also collapse. Su Wan, no one can survive. No one can survive, including you. This is my wish. If I, Su Wan, can't have it, then I'll destroy everything. At that moment, Su Wan's heart couldn't feel pain anymore. She had never been afraid of death. Isn't it better if everyone dies together? Let's fight to the death in our next life. The moment she pressed the remote control, Su Wan felt like she was finally free. She didn't need to be an eyesore anymore. Death was the perfect curtain call. Bang! Within the massive explosion, the entire villa turned into a sea of flames. Su, Er and Xing Yi, who were the main characters, were amongst the guests. After the male and female lead died, the entire world would collapse. When the flames and heat waves of the explosion came, Su Wan had already closed her eyes. But at the last second, Su Su reached out to her. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.